Okay, the only thing I can't get, Andrea, can you just share your video? Okay, yeah. Okay, let me see. I can make sure I can share that in the broadcast room here. Okay, I can. Okay, let me get rid of this. I'm just doing a workaround. Sorry. Trying to figure out how we can make this work. Okay, so then and let's do a screen share, Andrea, while we have the opportunity here.
I have the presentation ready. Should I screen share? Okay.
Great. Okay, now I need to be able to do this. Okay, great. All right, that can work. All right, I think we can, once I get this, we are now broadcasting on Facebook, we're broadcasting on YouTube, and PEG Television. So my apologies, I'm not sure why we're having this issue, but we can proceed.
Thank you, Sam. One last thing is that there's text on the screen currently saying that this is a planning commission meeting. I didn't see it, but just wanted to let you know. I don't see it now, though. All right.
Yeah,
so we're gonna go ahead.
it was there, but now it's not, so we're good.
Excellent. Yay! We're ready to start. So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much, public, for coming. Thank you so much, GPAC members in the room and on Zoom. This is the third, technically, the third meeting of the General Plan Advisory Committee, or the GPAC. We'll go ahead and have roll call.
Thank you. If you are currently in the Zoom room but don't have your name attached to your account, you could raise your hand as I call your name and says it.
Okay, well.
Yeah. Paul Duncan, Kyle Bill, Phil Hartley, Marty Arenberg, Benjamin Murphy, and Ben, I saw you online. Those of you who I'm calling roll call, you can raise your hand as a feature in the chat or unmute yourself and say your name, please. Donna Makowitz.
Benjamin Murphy.
Thank you, Ben. Donna, do we have you?
Yes, I raised my hand.
Great, thank you. Betsy Kahn. I know Betsy's in the Zoom room. Yep, she raised her hand. Thank you. Weston Seifert. Sharon Zoller. Carolyn Hillman.
Carolyn Hillman.
Thank you, Carolyn. Daniel Terrell. Fawn Williams. Denise Rushing. Margot Kambara. And April Leiferman. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you very much. So to just go over our agenda, we will take a couple minutes to bring the GPAC up to speed on what we've been doing since our last meeting. Then we're going to take a look at the land use map overview, do a check just to see if there are any questions before we move on about the map itself. And then the main part of today's meeting is to go over recommendations from all 8 different local area plan advisory committees, or LAPACs, specific to land use designation amendments on the general plan map. We will do so in the order that you see bullet pointed on there, starting at Upper Lake, going to Lower Lake, Kelseyville, Middletown, Rivieras, Lakeport, Cobb Mountain, and Shoreline communities. Those sections will be shown on the screen so that I can help or introduce the purpose and the discussion behind those changes. Additionally, we have a number of people in attendance who can also speak to some of these land use designation amendment requests. And then finally, there is a question taking a look and considering hazard layers. Are there any adjustments needed to the proposed changes? Some of the hazard layers that are at top of mind lately are the new updates to the fire severity map that CAL FIRE has just updated, and we are currently in a 90-day public review time for those maps. Additionally, FEMA has just started working on updating their maps as well. And so I think those are the two hazards that we'll sort of use as filters as we're thinking and considering the LAPAC recommendations, though I can let you know that consideration of environment was taken into account in all the LAPAC meetings. So it's not like they weren't already thinking about it before they presented or before they solidified their list of recommendations. Let's introduce staff. Mireya Turner, Community Development Director. Shannon Walker-Smith here is our Deputy Administrator. She'll be running the tech on our side. Sam Houston, of course, our AV tech wizard back there, keeping us streaming. I think we have Ruby in Zoom. She was just listening into the meeting. Ruby was our office assistant helping us out with Lake County 2050, but she took the position in our department for account technician. So while I wish her well, I also still beg her to help until we get another OA3. So I appreciate Ruby there. Well, let Placework staff go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Thank you. I'll start. My name is Tanya Sundberg. I'm a principal with PlaceWorks. We are all really excited and happy to be working with you on this project. I'll hand it over to Allison.
Thanks, Tanya. My name is Allison. I'm the Assistant Project Manager for the Lake County 2050 project, general plan update, and I will be navigating the map viewer as we go through the potential general plan land use changes today.
Good
Hand it off to
afternoon,
Andrea.
everyone. My name is Andrea Howard. I'm the project manager for the general plan update. And now if Tammy could introduce herself, please.
Hello, I'm Tammy Seal, part of the PlaceWorks team, and I've been helping or leading our team with the climate resilience and safety element components.
Thank you. Just an overview update of what we have been doing since your last meeting, in case you were thinking that we were just kind of sitting around, letting time pass. As you know, the board did establish 8 different local area plan advisory committees for the sole purpose of making sure we were getting community-focused input as we were doing all of our area plan updates. So we had a wild and crazy 4 or 5 weeks where we held 46 meetings with 8 different LAPACs in person, virtually, in the board chambers and in the planning areas. It was a ride, but wow, I was just so thankful for the LAPAC members because our meetings were either in the morning or in the night, or on virtual or in person, and a lot of them really did hang in there. We couldn't usually get like the whole LAPAC together because everybody's got their lives, but we did get LAPAC members at all of the different meetings. They were there, they were ready to talk. We had members of the public attend and join these meetings with requests and with input, and it worked out really well. So I then drafted an internal draft of what I recorded as recommendations. I sent them to the planning team, also sent them out to some of the LAPAC members, got corrections on what I got wrong. So this has been an ongoing update. Allison has been working a lot on creating a GIS layer that reflected all of those recommendations, and that's what you're going to see in front of you today. I just, as I have told all the LAPAC members and the GPAC members and members of the public, don't trust me to get it 100% right. So please make sure that if there's anything off that's different than you remember, to speak up. So that's why we have extended the invitation for today's meeting to all of the LAPAC members as well. So hopefully all of us working together will get exactly what the community wanted. I don't think I was way off, but you know, maybe not 100%. There are a couple that we may need to pay attention to. Secondly, the general plan update is a great time for people from the community to come with their land use designation amendment requests to be considered by the LAPACs and then now today by the GPACs. The purpose of bringing these all together to you today is because this is the point where your recommendations regarding the LAPAC recommendations helps to guide us as we launch our environmental review. And so, although we are still taking requests for land use designation amendments, there are a couple that I have gotten since our LAPAC meeting ended, and I'm going to hold off on those or set them aside because I really want them to come from the LAPAC first, so they will come to you at a future meeting for your consideration as well. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Allison for a countywide general plan land use map overview, or Tanya.
It's actually me, it's Tanya.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm gonna share my screen with a couple slides here, so just give me a moment. Okay. So as Director Turner explained, I think today's meeting is really focused on reviewing the LAPAC recommendations for changes to the general plan land use map. So I just want to start first with kind of an overview of what this map is, just so we have have the shared understanding of what we're talking about, and then we'll get into an overview of the changes. What this map is it identifies the type of land use that can be developed on each parcel of land in the unincorporated county. So you can see the snippet of the current general plan land use map on this slide. It shows, for example, the darker green areas show areas that should remain in agriculture use. Yellow areas show areas that could be developed with low density residential. There's a whole list of designations you can see in the legend, but that's what the general plan map does, is it indicates what land uses can be developed. It also provides some basic parameters for how that land use can be developed. So, for example, in residential designations, it identifies a maximum density, which is the number of homes per acre that are allowed to be developed. And then for non-residential designations like commercial or industrial, it identifies the allowed intensity of development, which is typically done through a limit on the ratio of the floor area to the lot size, but basically it kind of limits how big the building can be. And then this land use map also establishes a framework for the more detailed zoning map that regulates land use and development at a more fine-grained scale. So that's what the land use map does. So we did share an online web map viewer prior to this meeting. And that was sent out with an email to the GPAC members, and then we also sent an e-blast to our project email list. So that map viewer includes the recommended general plan land use map changes from the LAPACs, and those are the focus of our discussion today. We're going to switch to that viewer in just a moment, but before we do, I want to highlight a recommended change to the land use map that's not yet reflected in the web map viewer. You can see on this slide this map, and this is to reflect a recommended change to apply the resource conservation designation as a 20-foot buffer around Clear Lake and around its tributaries. And that's as a conservation strategy for the Clear Lake Hitch. So those tributaries are shown on this map to the right, but this whole mapping effort is still underway and it's not reflected in the web map viewer, but it is a pretty straightforward change. So please do consider that as part of your review today. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask Allison to start sharing the web map viewer to continue the overview here.
All right, thank you, Tanya. Can everyone hear me?
Mhm.
Start my video for now.
And Allison, I
It's
think,
choppy.
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, Allison, I think I can do just a brief overview now. And then I think we'll get into the individual area plans or planning areas in a bit after, once we get into that discussion. Does that work, or did you want to do a broad overview?
That sounds great. Please take
Okay.
it away.
Thanks. Okay, so again, just as I just said, when we later in this agenda, when we start going through and review these in more detail, we'll have we'll kind of go area by area and do an overview of the changes and highlight them. But for now, just really big picture, stepping back. This is the map that shows the draft new general plan land use map. And that's based on the LAPAC recommendations. So again, you can see, like I showed in that slide, each of those colors on the map indicate a different kind of land use that can be developed. The legend is shown on the right side of your screen. And then it also shows the parcels that the LAPACs recommended for a change from the existing general plan land use map. And that's done using that pink outline. So Allison, if you could just zoom into like the Riviera's planning area, I think it's a good one to see what that looks like at a little bit more detailed scale, because at a countywide scale, it's a little hard to see those outlines. But you can see those pink outlines there. Those are the parcels where the LAPACs have recommended a change. And then the other boundary that you see is a purple boundary. That's the existing community growth boundaries in the county. And so the LAPACs have also talked about those and did recommend some changes to those community growth boundaries. But those are going to be talked about at our next meeting. So those changes are not shown in this web map viewer. But generally, when you kind of step back and look at this, look at just where the pink outlines are, it really is not an extensive set of changes that the LAPACs have recommended. I think in some places like Upper Lake and Nice and in Middletown, there's really very little changes that are recommended. But in other areas, we've got some more. So again, most of the meeting today will be going through these, at the planning area level to review and confirm the LAPAC recommendations. But just wanted to give that broad overview. And then the other piece of this web map viewer that we wanted to highlight in this broad overview are some of the important mapped hazard areas. Just again, as Director Turner mentioned, we want to keep those in mind as we continue this discussion. So I'm actually going to hand it off now to Tammy Seal, who's going to talk briefly about those hazard layers.
Thanks, Tanya. Allison, if you could pick the CAL FIRE fire hazard severity zone layer and the SRA, we can start there to show that on. So, hopefully many of you have had the opportunity to interact with this map. And as you can see in the legend, for our work on the general plan, we're considering all natural and climate hazards that are likely to occur in the county. We wanted to just make sure to call out today the information you have available to you to refer to if you'd like during the meeting to show the mapped wildfire hazard areas and the mapped flood hazard areas. So I think many of you are probably very familiar with these maps. So we wanted to make sure to let you know that we have them as a reference. This one is showing the state responsibility areas, which is where CAL FIRE has the primary financial responsibility for wildfire prevention and response. The state responsibility area maps were updated last year. And just as a reminder, these maps show us, and they evaluate hazard, and which is not necessarily risk. So it's hazard based on the physical conditions that create the likelihood and the expected fire behavior over a period of time. So these are for reference. These can be considered as environmental considerations or constraints. But there are certainly a number of ways the general plan can mitigate development that occurs in these areas. And these areas, the mapped areas, the very high, are subject to state building code requirements as well to mitigate risk. So There's also a local responsibility area map, and that's the one that Maria mentioned, has just been released by CAL FIRE for an update, and it's out now for public review. So after that map is updated, we will, as approved and adopted, we will update this map viewer to include the updated local responsibility areas that will now show very high, high, and moderate areas. And then Allison, if we could switch to a flood layer, a 100-year flood zone would be great. And so similarly, flooding is certainly another risk of concern in most places and of course in Lake County. So we have the option here to show you the 100-year flood zone and the 500-year flood zone. These are mapped by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. And Maria mentioned that these maps are also going through a review and update process. So for this project, we will be using the ones that are currently available and best adopted. The 100-year maps show us this likelihood of a storm event, the extent of these storm area being inundated by floodwater, like a 1% chance of occurring in any given year. And then the 500-year zones are often helpful to add on top of these, just to have a greater awareness of our exposure. And then as part of this project, we're evaluating the effect that climate change is causing on these hazards and increasing their intensity and frequency over the coming years. So we do have a good, fair extent of mapped 100-year and 500-year flood zones and state and local responsibility areas. So we do have these available to our team as we go through the meeting today, and they're available to all of you who have access to the map viewer. So I think that's all we have for now. Back to Tanya and Allison.
Great, thank you, Tammy. I think we can probably stop screen sharing. I think that concludes our overview, and we'll hand it back to Director Turner to continue us on the agenda, which I think is questions and answers.
Yes. So are there any questions regarding what we've seen so far? Either the layers, the mapping? Yeah, why don't you come on up, Michael, come on up to the podium so we can capture.
It was mentioned, I think, that the community growth boundaries recommendations are not shown today.
Correct. That is for next week's meeting. But I did get your voicemail and your email, and we will get that incorporated.
Okay, and then the hazard map and the flood maps, they're not on the viewer.
I think the current fire hazard map is not the updated.
Okay, it's not on the viewer. I looked for it.
Correct.
I didn't see it.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't see the current one either?
No.
Okay.
I didn't see any.
Tammy?
That's all.
Thank you.
The current local responsibility area layer, is that the question?
Or the current SRA.
Okay, the SRA was on there, but
Okay.
we will double check that the existing local responsibility area layer is available.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we move on to our GIS part, let's show the public where they can find that too. Because I know that I had to sort of fumble around clicking and unclicking the different options.
Hey, Wes Baker. I couldn't find that map either.
Okay.
But my question is, on that hazard map of the fire and stuff like that, when that's compiled, again, calling a place a hazard area, does it take into account, I mean, it's just saying wildfire, right? Mm-hmm. When an arsonist starts a fire and it takes off, it turns into a wildfire when in fact it's a criminal fire. Mm-hmm. It's not just a fire hazard zone. So it's not really fair if you're in a place, if you live in a part of this county where arsonists have started fires, you've lost your home and now your insurance rates go up and now you're in a wildfire zone, when in fact for, the 100-year flood or whatever, the 100-year had never happened before, except for the arsonist. He was the sole thing. And the same would ring true with the homeless that start fires up here with their warming fires, that those fires wouldn't even exist if they weren't out there lighting the fires in the first place. And it's just sad to see that we label on that map there, a big swash of that is not, you know, like where PG&E's line did it or got no lightning strike or something like that, you know?
Yeah, your timing is great, Wes, actually, because the 90-day public input period for those maps is just started like yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So what I would like you to do, and anybody else who might be watching this video, if you have a comment about the fire maps for the county areas,
Yeah.
you should send an email to resource planner. Is there a dot in between there? Resource planner. Pretty sure it's resource planner, but I know Michelle's listening. She'll correct me if I'm wrong. Resource planner at lakecountyca.gov.
Okay.
We're collecting public inputs through that email address.
Yeah, and
So thank you
and
for
then the
bringing
other
that
part
up.
too, just the last part on that, just the last comment on that one is that if a fire like Clayton Fire, Lower Lake Clayton Fire, wasn't enough homes to be a FEMA event. So yet we did have some FEMA stuff up here. FEMA would be a pretty big event, which is, say, hazardous area too, you know, I mean, where's the definition of what's what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Any other questions? Seeing none, we will take just a moment to make sure our PEC is still working. I don't think so. We're going to double check and announce what that correct email address is. It's on the press release that went out, but I don't remember it offhand. Okay, but in the meantime, we'll get back to our next item, which is discussion. Oh, yeah.
Can I just ask one question?
Come on, Wes. Come on back.
Because they only showed a couple of maps, and the one map was the zoning, possible zoning changes?
The land use designations.
Yeah, will that be later, or is that?
We're coming back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually the whole point of our meeting today.
That's what I
So
thought.
we're going to dive in and see that for the next 80
And
minutes.
I thought, did I miss
You are
that?
in the
That's
right
why I'm
place
here too.
at the right time.
Thank you.
Yep. Get comfortable. Okay. So we'll go to the general plan land use map by planning area. Oops, excuse me. And this is where we tag team with Allison and the map.
Yep, I'm opening this now. Please let me know if you can see that. My screen share. Sometimes it takes a second to load here. You all see that?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Excellent.
And just before
Um,
you get started, Allison, comments for the public review on the CAL FIRE map update, go to resource planning at lakecountyca.gov. Resource planning at lakecountyca.gov. Thank you. All right, back to you, Allison.
Thanks, Mibrea. Well, the first thing I want to mention, dive into the changes, is Andrea linked a link to the video tutorial that we provided that gives a little bit of an orientation to how to use the map. It's provided in the e-blast that we sent out and also in the calendar event that's on the website. And in there, I think it might be a little bit tough to tell, but there's this hazard layers layer here in the layer panel, and to the left of it is a little caret, meaning that it is a grouped layer and you can extend it downwards. And then when you extend it downwards, you see all the layers within it, within that group. And then once you do that, you can turn each one on and off. But I would recommend turning off the land use designations layer first because it's so colorful. And you know, when you have two very colorful maps sort of on top of each other, it can look really confusing. But that's just a note that these are actually grouped layers, and hopefully they should be in the viewable in the web map viewer, but they're just within or nested within this drop down menu.
So I see CAL
recommend maybe
FIRE
taking a look
listed a
at
couple times. Allison, could you show which one just offhand we should be looking for that map?
So the one that we did take a look at is this one here called the CAL FIRE Hazard Severity Zones in State Responsibility Areas. That is the one that we discussed with Tammy. And then we also have, I'm going to turn that off now by clicking this little eye icon there. And then below it, we have the FEMA 100-year flood zone layer, and then also the FEMA 500-year flood zone layer, which is a more rare event.
Cool.
So that's how you can access these layers. You have to click the, you're right that they can be a little bit tough to see. You have to extend down this grouped menu and click on the layer to turn it on and off. Okay, so yeah, I recommend taking a look at the tutorial for a little bit of an orientation on how to use the map. And unless there are any other questions, I think we can go ahead and dive into the changes here, if that sounds good to you. So I will zoom into our first area, which is Upper Lake Nice. And the extent of the changes in Upper Lake Nice are really, and I also want to say before I go ahead that it takes the map a second to load. So sometimes they can look a little funky, but you have to just give it a little second there. So at Upper Lake Nice, there are not any specific changes besides the 20-foot buffer around the Clear Lake Hitch tributaries that Tanya identified earlier in the presentation when she shared the map from the Clear Lake Hitch Conservation Strategy Report. So that is the upcoming change. It's not depicted here, as Tanya mentioned, but we are in the process of getting that data together and depicting it on the map. And you can see there's already a resource conservation designation. If we turn on the existing general plan land use designations, you know, we already apply, or the county already applies a resource conservation designation to many of the waterways and important wetlands that are in the county. So that there really are no illustrated potential changes that are illustrated here using this pink boundary in Upper Lake Nice, but we can open it up if there are any comments or anything anyone would like to discuss, knowing that Clear Lake Hitch tributaries 20-foot buffer is not yet on the map viewer.
I could add a little bit to that. The 20-foot riparian buffer stemmed from Shoreline Communities LAPAC, but I didn't realize, it actually helped me to realize that we were supposed to have that, and in most areas we did, but over time, through the multiple general plan updates, there were some parcels that was just lost. Like if their general plan land use designation went from one thing to another thing, the resource conservation that had been going through there disappeared. And so this is both in respect for the hitch sensitivity, as well as kind of correcting what should have been there all along. Also, one side note, if you are a member of the public but have been attending LAPAC meetings, like especially Holly or Donna, Donna's already on, we're going to make you panelists also so that you can help speak out to some of the basis behind some of the LAPAC recommendations. Thank you. Okay, let's keep going. Did the GPAC members have any questions about these land use designation changes for this area plan, Upper Lake Nice? Seeing none in the room, are there any hands raised in panelists, Shannon? Okay, let's open that up for public input. Are there any public input regarding this series of changes? Come on, Michael. And if you do want to speak, please come to the podium so that we can all get you on microphone. You may as well, yeah.
Hi, Michael Central. Just a comment. I'm certainly for saving the hitch, but I'm just asking, 20 feet on each side of a creek is quite wide, that's 40 feet. I was wondering, how did we get to 20 feet and not 10 or less than 20?
Great question. I believe that our waterway article already has a 20-foot riparian setback.
No.
So this is sort of just getting it back to what it actually has been.
Okay.
Thanks.
Holly, I think I saw your hand. If you still want to speak, could you unmute yourself and go ahead?
Oh, hi. Actually, my question was the exact opposite. Why is it only 20 feet?
I think that we went with what was already standing. I don't recall. Yeah, pretty much.
Well, does it make a difference if the slopes are quite steep, et cetera?
Not
I mean, I
in
think of
the-
Schindler Creek, and you know, basically, there's a lot of very steep bluffs along there, and 20 feet might not even go up the bluff.
Mm,
I don't need to necessarily discuss this now. I just wanted to open that up.
yeah, writing that down. Thank you. Okay, bringing it back. Are there any other hands?
Any other comments on Upper Lake Nice changes?
Please go ahead.
Sharon,
and
could
speak
you,
in-
yeah, speak into the mic?
Is Lake Pillsbury part of this section?
Way up there. Yeah.
Way up there, yeah.
Allison, can you scroll north
Yes.
and east? I think it might be shoreline.
I
though,
think that's
isn't it?
up
Closer to
here. I thought it's this
It
guy
looks
right
like it's
here,
upper. I just
right?
wondered,
This is,
and maybe this is not the
You're right.
right place
Yep.
to have that conversation. Oh, different color.
The blue is public lands. The green.
Lands not
Okay.
under county control.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Super. Yeah, for those watching, the khaki green is rural lands. Those are lands in county, but it's kind of like a little checkerboard of what is privately owned versus what is
Okay.
public.
There are no other hands.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the GPAC for discussion. We're kind of getting you started off on an easy one. All right, is there any dissent regarding this recommendation? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to the next one. Lower
Right.
Lake, Allison, back to you.
all right. Taking it to Lower Lake now. We have a couple changes here. I'm just going to give an overview for all of the changes first, and then I'll hand it over to you, Mireya, to kind of go through them one by one. Well, not by each parcel, but by each cluster. So the first one we have here is this cluster of parcels in the southeast, just below the southeast boundary of the Lower Lake Community Growth Boundary. This set of parcels is proposed to change from rural residential, which is what it's showing now, to suburban residential reserve in 2050. So this is what it's proposed. Set of parcels here, so I'll just do that one more time. This is the current land use. This is rural residential. Then they're being proposed to change to suburban residential reserve. And then before we talk about those, I wanted to just scan to the other set of parcels that are potentially changing in Lower Lake, which is this set of parcels here, outlined in pink, the bright pink. And these are proposed to change from what they are now, which is suburban residential reserve, to local commercial. So I will zoom back out, and I think, we can discuss either one first. And
Let's go back to the first one first, because I can give a little background on that. And we also have Michael here if we have questions. Okay, so these parcels follow Morgan Valley Road. They currently have public infrastructure, water and sewer, and they are also included in a LAPAC recommendation you'll see next week regarding changing the community growth boundary to include them also. Michael, if you have anything else you'd like to add for that, where'd you go? Oh, yeah.
As you pointed out to me a while ago, pardon me, yeah. As you pointed out to me a while ago, those parcels that are recommended to be rezoned from rural residential to suburban reserve are consistent with the surrounding parcels. And they're not, and they're right across the other side of the street, of Morgan Valley Road from those parcels. And they have water and they have the power, they should be SR and also in the Lower Lake Community Growth Boundary.
Typically, suburban reserve is part of the gradual change or transition from our remote rural land areas that have maybe 20 to 60 acre minimum parcel size due to their slopes and remote location, coming into rural residential, which is the next kind of phase closer towards our more densely populated areas. Rural residential has between 5 and 10 acre minimum parcel size. It also typically can have some steep slopes and does tend to still be somewhat remote. Suburban reserve, as you can see bordering this portion of parcels, can have about 1 to 3 acre minimum parcel size. So it's the closest transitional residential or rural phase. But with suburban reserve, you'll note that you can't have primary ag uses like you can in rural residential and rural lands. In suburban reserve, it switches. It still has the larger parcel size, but it switches over to a primary residential use with accessory ag use if necessary. It's where we start implementing our animal density rules, because we recognize that this buffer zone, this suburban reserve zone, neighbors a lot of our low density residential areas. And so we're looking to minimize some of the more rural impacts that you'll get in RL or RR, which is where you could have your pig farms and other things like that. So the request was discussed by the LAPAC, and they did note that it wouldn't be that it is already compatible with the surrounding area of the housing, and also since you typically will find your within your community growth boundaries, your municipal water and sewer, it seemed consistent with that as well. Did we have any LAPAC questions? Michael, did you have anything to add? No. Wes, hold on just a second. Did we have any GPAC questions? Yeah.
Question.
Go ahead.
You want to go ahead?
No, you go ahead.
My question has to do with, I'm just looking at the footprint of the Clayton fire. Did the LAPAC consider fire severity as part of that suggested change?
I don't recall having an outright discussion of previous fire footprints, but the community was aware of the Clayton fire. Yeah. Are there any more GPAC before I open it up to public? Any in the Zoom? Hands raised.
None in Zoom.
Okay, go ahead, Wes.
Thank you. I attended 2 of the scoping meetings, where the communities worked together and wrote stuff up. One of them was over here, it was on ag. Mm-hmm. The other was in Lower Lake. I'm a Lower Lake resident. And at the Lower Lake one, I mean, it was a unanimous consensus over there that they want ag. Mm-hmm. And anything you take away from ag, like these lots here, these look like pretty good size little lots, that people want a horse, people want chickens. You buy eggs right now, you look at the price of eggs. People are buying chickens. It's a different world we're in. And to zone that away from not allowing someone to buy the eggs, have chickens or have a horse or something like that of their own, I doubt someone's gonna, I understand your story of the pig farm, but I doubt somebody's gonna open up a pig farm right there. I truly doubt it. It would be out of the norm. But people do want the horse and they want the chickens, they want the goats. There's a large Hispanic population over there. They like the goats. And they have the goats, and sometimes they're told they can't have the goats, or they got the chicken. If you got chickens are quiet, but you got a rooster, then the rooster's making noise, and people go, oh, you can't have that rooster here, And it's a changing place, and I think it was unanimous at that meeting that night in Lower Lake, and I'm just speaking for Lower Lake, and I'm just speaking my voice of, I was present, and so were many of you. It was unanimous that they want to keep the ag. They don't want large businesses starting up there. They don't want the Dollar General. And those lots, are they empty right now? I mean, are they?
I think most of them are developed currently residentially.
There's people living in them? Houses?
That is
and
my
stuff like that?
understanding, yeah. And Michael can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Keep going.
well, then I don't understand why you would want to take the ag away from them. I mean, if they got it, and all of a sudden now they're going to say, we've rezoned it, and now you can't have your chickens? Or your horse? That's the chickens and a horse, I'm not speaking for everyone, but that's kind of a dream people have.
Mhm.
I grew up in the city, and that was a dream I had, was to be out in the country where we are now and have animals and stuff like that. And I think we should keep that dream alive. I think that's the dream of Lake County, rather than turning Lake County into American Canyon or something like that.
Thank you. I can actually speak to that because I totally get that. I kind of wanted to raise cows when I moved here, but that was dumb. So the animal densities then that would apply should these parcels be changed to suburban reserve would include 1 hog or pig per 80,000 square feet. And just for people who don't play around in planning all the time, an acre is 40,560 square feet. So this would be one pig roughly per 2 acres. A horse, mule, cow, steer, or similar animal, 1 per 20,000 square feet, so roughly 2 per acre. 3 goats, or sheep or similar animals per 20,000 square feet, again, double that for the acre. 24 chickens per 20,000 square feet, so we could still have 48 chickens per acre. 10 ducks, rabbits, or similar animals per 20,000 square feet. You could have beehives, and then let's see what else. Yeah, so it doesn't take away the ability to recognize agricultural activity on the parcel. It is just sort of phasing it to smaller scale than what we would see in rural residential and rural lands.
Maria, could you speak to why this change is being suggested?
I think actually, Michael, it was his request, and I think he could probably say it better than I could. I just took a look at how it could be compatible or incompatible, but I'll defer that to him.
Well, I'm third generation Lake County, Lower Lakean actually, and follow the properties. When you look at the map, you'll see that it could be considered a no-brainer in that it's right across the street from Suburban Reserve and from the Lower Lake Community Boundary. We own 3 of those parcels, and we don't have any plans to do anything immediately, and I doubt if anything will happen in a decade or so, but this is a 25-year program, 25-year cast of the dice. So now is the time to make the pitch for it. As I say, it's compatible with all the surrounding areas. It's on a paved road. You have the water, you have the power. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. And it isn't zoned ag now, it's zoned rural residential. So, and as Maria says, the people can still have horses, chickens, and cows, and even a pig, apparently. So I don't see any problem with that.
One thing to
We have
recognize.
Marty online as well.
Oh, great. Go ahead, Marty.
Unmute yourself, Marty.
Thank you. I'm on the general plan, but I'm also on the local plan advisory committee. And as one of the members who voted yes, that we think this is a good idea, our concern was the limited amount of potential growth for rentals and smaller housing. And this just felt like it made the most sense compared to breaking into the more the larger green and the denser green and the larger parcels. You know, the farther we get away around or away from this growth development, that was the biggest impact. And again, as stated before, that, you know, you can still have your little farm without, again, impacting our larger ag areas that are being turned into something that we really didn't want to see.
And before we get back to Wes, the parcels in question vary between, I think, 6 and 9 or larger acreage. So again, the minimum parcel size, which would allow for future subdivision, should the future property owners want to do so, would be held to somewhere between a 1 to 3 acre parcel. 1 acre, it would be, yes, it would allow options for subdivision in the future. Wes?
Hi, and I don't mean to go against the last speaker, but if he owns 3 of the properties, zone his. Have we talked to the other folks that own the other ones? You know, if he wants to change the zoning on his, that's like an application for whatever, you know. But what about the other folks that don't own the other property? Do they, you know, is it going to be zoned right out from under their feet? And the to go to that, and I was wondering, you know, why? I was sitting over here wondering why would. And one of the board members asked why. Well, the why now I think has just been let out is that you can subdivide, and that means more and more houses. And I have distinct knowledge of the workings of the Lower Lake Waterworks, okay? They don't have a lot of water. They don't have a lot of water at all. They are almost upside down, and if they were a private company, they would more than likely be bankrupt or talking with a bankruptcy attorney. So right now, presently, it's the way it is, and that's how many water services are going to it. And if all of a sudden that 9 acres turns into 9 more homes, now they got 9 more laterals and they got that much more water usage, and they're not prepared for growth. And again, going back and then I'll quit. To that meeting at Lower Lake, we didn't really want growth. They wanted stuff kind of the way it is. They like that little small town. And you know, I'm not a Lower Lake 3 generation. I can't speak for that, but my wife was born and raised there. So part of my family is Lower Lake, and we own a couple properties there too. And I'm not trying to subdivide them or do anything like that. Thank you.
Kyle, would you please unmute yourself and give your input?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's good that we're having this right now and get to hear feedback. I kind of lean more in favor of proceeding with these changes. As the gentleman earlier had mentioned, there's already disagreements with goats and complaints now. And I can't imagine the more that this area grows, and there isn't a limit on the amount of livestock that could be in there, those complaints would only grow as well. So I think trying to mitigate, you know, both of those needs, I think it's kind of the best option moving forward. You have, you could still have that mini farm currently with these changes, but it would be limited so where if there is surrounding growth, there's not as, I think I could imagine if somebody just could have an unlimited amount or, more goats or more animals in that parcel, and then there's, residential development nearby that could potentially cause more of an issue with residents in the area, because as he had mentioned, there's already complaints about people having goats already, and these guidelines haven't been in effect. So I think it's kind of a good approach to move forward with having limitations so that it kind of help mitigates, because we're planning for the future. I think it's Lake County 2050, not Lake County 2025. So I think that's important to consider.
Thank you, Keitel. Marty, do you want to unmute yourself?
I appreciate what the last person said, and I think that that's what we were looking at is future growth, and it was close to utilities that aren't in areas and has been a major problem for the development at Twin Lakes and other developments that are further out away from this central area. So the idea of looking at how can we expand that by keeping it close to that for those utilities was a huge consideration. If the Lower Lake area water department cannot facilitate that, well, that is another issue on top of zoning that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. There are no other hands on Zoom.
Okay, so we'll bring it back to the GPAC. Just so the GPAC members are aware, at each LAPAC meeting, part of our discussion was covering our upcoming housing element and the regional housing needs assessment numbers. And so as Marty was speaking to it, that was one of the layers that they were thinking through, evaluating, looking for housing opportunities as well. And so, yeah, I appreciate that she's here to speak to that group. Seeing no further public input or requests in the room or in Zoom, we can bring it back to GPAC for discussion.
I'd like to make a comment.
Oh, please, come right up.
My name's Norman Kimes. I grew up here. My great uncle owned the 1,200 acres across from us on Hoffaker Lane. I've watched this development go on, and I abhor it. I have over 20,000 cars a day go past my house with all the debris and the dirt, with all the noise. It's apparently a scenic corridor, so I'm limited on the size of my greenhouse, which limits my ag abilities. Water is a massive issue, massive. I've been in contact with the State Water Board for the last 6 years. Lake County is resistant to giving data to this board. One of their jobs is to predict where the next crisis area is going to be. Lake County refuses to participate. Not you, but us in general, the independent-minded people who tend to live here. That creates difficulties across the board. I have water problems because our spring was on my great uncle's old place. As that developed, we had 17 illegal cannabis operations over there with all the problems that attend that. Increasing the density by reducing the size of parcels is not going to make people happy. It's not going to encourage neighbors getting along. To do that, you have to be involved with your neighbors. Adding more variables, more people in a smaller area will create friction. If you don't believe it, go to San Francisco. They used to feed themselves from Colma in South San Francisco. San Francisco can't feed itself. Lake County at this point can't feed itself. We have to depend on food from China, Chile, Guatemala, anywhere but here. If you really care about the future of this place, and you care about the quality of life that is here, because it's unique. This place is unique in California. I've been all over it. It has its own character. And to preserve it, you have to let people like Wes, who has an intelligent perspective of things and way more knowledge than I do, you have to evaluate what he has to bring to the table. I get that we have monetary crises everywhere. And it makes sense that if I had more money, I could buy something better, we can fix this problem. We're in the midst of that. We got nothing but problems in this country. We've got more money being handled than ever in my lifetime. You can pick up somebody at Home Depot, they get $50 an hour. If you knew how long it took me as a contractor to make $50 an hour, it would stagger you. It's crazy. More money doesn't make it better. Quality of life is how we treat each other. That's what it's about. If you grow food and you share food within the community, that's the basis of health care. That's the basis of a good life. The bigger plots will do it. Right now, I'm growing on a 1/4 acre. I've fed 3 families all year. We haven't bought produce since July. I've got at least 50 acres that's arable on the 500 acres I live on. That's a minimum of 25 families. Minimum. This is what Lake County is. This is what I want you to help me protect, because I can't do it. It's up to you. I'm just here, one guy hiding in the woods because I can't get along with people, but I know how to grow plants. So consider that. Again, you put these 1 acre parcels together. I've been there. I know what happens. You get somebody who has a septic problem, they just put a pump in and they pump it onto their neighbors. Sure, you got laws to enforce against that. They're still doing it. So how do we fix it? God, we just got to be kind to each other, okay? Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be massive. Just help a little bit. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Any other public input? Unknown callers don't count. Okay, we'll bring it back to GPAC for discussion and consideration. Take over, Chair. Yeah. Microphone.
Is there discussion on the part of the GPAC?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a thorny situation, and I want to acknowledge Marty's viewpoint and her thoughtfulness for taking a look at future growth and where it would have lesser impact. I also appreciate the perspective shared by Wes and I believe Mr. Klein's. Part of looking into the future, we do have to evaluate water demand and water supply. So I think it would be premature for us right now to go ahead and greenlight this decision for this change. I believe since we're talking about 25 years into the future, we can pause and take a closer look and look at what are the alternatives or what are the options in terms of water supply. It doesn't make sense to rezone this area, to suburban reserve, thinking that, oh, well, maybe down the road, somebody will figure out whether there's enough water supply. Let's not create more problems for ourselves down the road. Let's be thoughtful now. Thank you.
Anyone else from the GPAC?
Well, obviously, there's, you have a philosophical debate. On the one hand, you can say, well, we ought to help each other out and be kind to one another and be a community. But then you say, well, and the way to do that is to keep people out. Well, seems like a little bit of a paradox there, to me. when you do have a community and you do have more hands on deck and more people that, you know, can work together, has always produced greater results. If you're more interested in just keeping things as they are without change, then generally you're not going to support creating new communities. But communities, when they do come together, can do amazing things. I mean, my little community's been involved in, what, half a dozen projects just in the last couple of years, where the people of my community say, sure, I'll chip in, I'll do this, how can I help? And we've done some amazing projects with the county to make the place a safer place to live. I don't know, it really comes down to a philosophy of what you think's most important. But runs against my grain, though, to say that a good solution, you know, is to make it more difficult for people to come in and create, you know, new communities. On the other hand, there's a lot of data here that probably is missing in our heads, and that is, you know, what about water usage? Infrastructure is, you know, is extremely important. One of the reasons that HOAs were created was because counties and cities could not handle the great growth in California and the desire of developers to create new communities all over the place from the 1960s on. The solution was to turn some of that responsibility back over to the newly formed communities by saying, okay, yeah, you can build a community here, but you have to take care of your roads, you have to take care of your schooling, you have to take care of your water, you have to take care of, you know, these things that make a community work. So I don't know. I'm not offering a solution, and I don't know which way I'd vote now. But it seems to me it comes down to: are we in favor of creating an opportunity for new people to come and live in Lake County and form new communities, bring something to the county with them, hopefully, and or is the best solution to, you know, close the doors and do as much as we can to keep people out?
If it is helpful, part of the land subdivision process requires substantiation or confirmation of service of water. And so should a future property owner want to subdivide the parcel, that would be, the water district would get involved in that time and would affect whether or not a subdivision could take place.
I'm just going to put my 2 cents in here. I'm torn on this one. First of all, the recommendation from the committee carries weight because they really are looking for where we're going to meet our future housing goals, right? So I can understand looking for parcels. But on the other hand, I'm very well aware that it's a big decision on the part of any body to allow future subdividing. Subdivision is exactly when the money's made. When you're given that permission or zone to do it, it's a costly decision for both. It's costly if we don't do it on the part of the parcel owner, and it's costly if we do it on the part of the public. You can't take that back, right? Once you allow the zoning, it's very hard to claw it back. So I'm really torn. I'm not one that likes to. I'm not one that thinks that there is a lack of subdivided land in Lake County. I think we have plenty. Unfortunately, a lot of it's just not been cared for in a way that makes it easy to build. It's so much easier to build on large parcels than smaller ones. So I too am torn on this one. I can understand the need or the request, and I can understand that the local area group has suggested this as a way to take pressure off of ag development, which should be a non-starter in all cases. But I'm also aware that once we say yes, we've granted something that can't be reversed.
I think my 2 cents. So same thing. I see both sides. The lens that I look at this through is again, that it's 2050. So really it's my kids and their families. The decisions that we're making now impacts the next generation and the next generation. And I think that, you know, we already have an issue in Lake County with housing, with all of that. And, you know, this is already a space that has infrastructure in it and all of that. And so that makes sense to me. But that this is, you know, if at the end of the day, in 2050, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Lake County will have growth. It is what will happen. And we either get to choose how we grow right now and make those decisions, or somebody else chooses for us how we grow. And so if we can be mindful, or for me, as I look at these, like to be mindful in terms of how we want to grow in the future, with, you know, as little impact, but to create, like I said, opportunity for our future generations.
So, for me, everybody's given 2 cents. I think it's worth a nickel now, but I think if we look back at the 2 surveys that were put out, the information back, it was one of the high priorities to keep Lake County in its rural and bucolic, and the nature of the county was highly regarded and valued. So I think we just need to think about that as we go through the different sections. The other part is, once you plant houses or anything else, you're done. Yeah, I mean, that open space is gone. Even if the houses are beautiful, it's still gone. So there may be other ways to address the housing criteria that we've got on us. But perhaps we look at other ways. Maybe there's some existing property or areas that is more less impactful into open space to meet some of those needs. We want to have smart growth and that urban-rural interface, so we don't look like, who would say, where was it?
American Canyon.
Thank you, American Canyon, or 75 years ago, we don't want to look like San Jose does now, because they were a major farming area. In fact, a lot of the farmers came up here. Anyway, just keep in mind that was certainly the philosophy and the feedback from those who participated in the surveys.
Donna, would you please unmute yourself?
We still have Margot in the room. She just, Denise couldn't see her.
Okay.
I can let Margot go.
Go ahead, Mark.
This is Donna.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to reframe the situation, I don't think this is the only time that we make decisions about the next 25 years. So if it turns out after more study that there is adequate water supply, well, then it would make sense to for the landowner to make the request to change the zoning. So it's great that we are being very thoughtful and serious about these decisions about 25 years down the road, but I don't think we have to be so overly concerned that we have to make these decisions right now. I think we have some time to be a little more thoughtful about it. Thanks.
Go ahead, Donna.
Okay, Donna Makowitz. I agree with Margot. It seems that in the future, it would not be hard for a parcel owner to come forward to change the zoning, whereas if we change it now, it's changed. So I'm in favor of leaving it as it is and look at the future in on individual parcel changes. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the GPAC? None in Zoom, okay. Mireya, would you like us to call a vote right now, or just push?
One moment, Wes. I'm not really sure if, since there's not a clear consensus through the GPAC, don't know that a vote would really get the detail that the board's going to need to hear, because the GPAC is not going to reverse decisions made by the LAPAC. You're adding in your additional data. And so I think maybe instead of a vote on things where we are kind of across the board, we're actually just taking notes on issues and things, concerns about the GPAC that will carry forward and be attached to that LAPAC recommendation.
Okay, and I would like, if we're not going to vote today, I personally would like us to come back to this, maybe through the end of the process, and so that we can weigh in, just to see where we stand.
Oh, give that some thought. We'll figure it out.
The GPAC, if the GPAC were to reverse what the LAPAC has suggested, that would be kind of an important note, I would think.
Indeed, it is. If your chair, why don't you let me know what you want to do? I know that the LAPAC recommendations will still be sent to the board.
Okay.
Yes. GPAC input is very important. So however you would prefer us to convey that, I'm open. I'm open to ideas.
Okay. Well, I'll see if we have consensus here. Does the GPAC want to weigh in on this?
Is that our role? Help us define our role then.
I think we are an advisory body, and it's our, as is the LAPAC.
The General Plan Advisory Committee is more specifically routed towards oversight of county-wide elements. However, because you are from around the whole county, you also have a participatory role within the local area plan updates as well. And so although it doesn't go LAPAC, GPAC, Planning Commission, it's more LAPAC, GPAC coming together to update, to make those updates. So where there is, in effect, what could possibly be a vote of non-support of a LAPAC recommendation, rather than change that or remove that LAPAC recommendation, what I intend to do is bring both to the board so that they have all of the input and can make their own choice. Because in the end, they are the deciding body.
Exactly. Okay. So with that, I will ask the GPAC if anyone wants to call the question. Do we want to weigh in on this today?
No.
No.
Denise, also, just while you're thinking, Phil, Donna has her hand up again. So
Oh, Donna. Yes,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So Donna, would you like to unmute yourself, please?
And I took away.
Sure. Donna Makowitz again for environment. Before you go and just change it to make the change, have we even thought, are there eagle nests there? Are there species of special concern? Are there bats? Instead of just quickly changing it, could we not look at what's there? Are there vernal pools?
Tammy in PlaceWorks, thank you, Donna. Tammy, I would defer that question to you to see if that's part of the environmental impact report.
Well, I can help speak to that as well. There will be an environmental impact report that evaluates the effects on the environment from adoption and implementation of the new general plan, and that includes the land use map. And so it will consider land use map. It will consider the new land use map, but it will do so at what we call a programmatic scale. So we're not going to be evaluating potential impacts as if it's for an individual project, where we would be going out and doing site surveys for endangered species and things like that. At the programmatic scale for the general plan EIR, we'll be looking broadly at the land use map. We'll be looking at countywide data that's available on sensitive species, and talking about it kind of all together. So it's not going to get at that site-specific level of detail that you see with a project level EIR, but it will be considered. When a future project comes forward, though, they would be needing to do that site scale evaluation under CEQA.
Right, we have other Zoom members.
Kyle, you want to? Yeah, Kyle, you want to unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you, Kyle, GPAC member. I think it's good for us to decide as a group, like how we're going to collectively move forward with these advisory, providing advisory votes or whatever it might be. Because I think to me, it's kind of like we're not going to have consensus if we're not going to provide any feedback to the board. I would imagine the board might look to GPAC as well to what our thoughts were, and that would only be through a vote. So if we're not going to make a decision on this, I think maybe tabling it would be great for us to kind of revisit this discussion, but not providing any kind of feedback to the board, I don't think makes me question the need for this advisory group if we're not making those recommendations to the board to consider. So I would just say as we do this, it kind of helps me to understand how we're going to handle these types of discussions moving forward, not just on this topic, whether or not we're going to vote on what our thoughts on recommendations would be or not. So just wanting to say that I think we set a precedence for how this group will conduct business moving forward if we don't address it.
Thank you, very much appreciate that. And we have another.
And Marty, unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Again, I'm a member of the local area planning and the general planning. So while I feel that this general planning committee needs to make a recommendation, I would caution you about saying that you're going to just decide to overturn the local recommendation because as a member of that local, my heart is in that community. And I would be devastated if somebody from Lakeport or Upper Lake was making decisions for my area when they don't have the traffic that Mr. Klein mentioned and the water issues that others have mentioned. That's a huge concern for me on both committees. So caution is all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And it sounds like we will be taking both recommendations so that the LAPACs will be taken to the board no matter what, right?
Yes.
All right, are there any other Zoom members? Right. So I'll bring it back to this body and ask if anyone wants to make a motion.
Do we have one more?
Oh, wait.
Oh, well, we had
the public that wants
it's
to
up
weigh
to
in
the
again?
chair. We had closed public input, but
We
if you
closed
want to-
public input, but come on up.
Thank you. It's kind of a closing argument, I guess, huh? Even though we're not in a court. But thank you guys for listening. It sounds like everybody was doing a really good job listening. I've got only just three things. Is that one is that I can't stress that, and I think the last commenter kind of said it too, is that Lower Lake Action Committee is the community. They speak for that community, and they're all volunteer, and they're just a good bunch of people that really care about Lower Lake, and I think that they set it out that they want ag. They don't want to take away ag. They don't want expansion. Like the one gentleman, I'm sorry, but I don't know your name, but you mentioned that no growth. I didn't hear no growth in this room all night till you said that. I don't think anybody's saying no growth. And if there was, if there was folks that want to move up here or move from other parts of the lake, the lower lake, there probably is 50 to 60 burnout lots still there from the Clayton fire. And nobody's making a move on them. And they got water, they got sewer, they got all that stuff. And there's no move on it. Why do we want to subdivide? We don't, that's not the kind of growth I don't think that Lower Lake wanted. I do believe Lower Lake wanted to see the community back. I know I live on Winchester Street, and they just built the last house on there a couple months ago, and it was like, my wife and I said, this is great, you know, because we didn't care what they built just as long as they came back. We said, we're not going to be upset with anything as long as they come back. And that's what Lower Lake wants. I'm telling you, it's not just me speaking for myself. The next item is that I would like to be on that list for CEQA and the EIR when that stuff happens. I'd like to, because whenever that goes on, I'd like to be notified of it. I have expertise in CEQA, and believe me, if this stuff does go through, that can be a very costly endeavor.
Super duper.
Yeah.
Please go to the Lake County 2050 website and sign up for notifications there. That would be awesome.
Mayor, I've done that before, and I still don't get them. I was notified about this meeting through the Farmers Finance Market Manager.
Then send me an email directly, and I'll make sure you're on our e-blast list.
And I need to remind everyone, we're probably way behind.
Also, yes, yeah, if we could just take a moment to discuss our somewhat
Well, since
slow
there was
progress.
one closing argument here, can you wrap that up, or are you?
I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah,
It sounds like we have one more behind.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for listening, and hope we can maintain as much rural up here as possible, and there is housing available. That's all.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Santarelli once again. Just want to say two things. The gentleman asked, does anyone else want this change? And he brought up Lower Lake Action Committee. The president of Lower Lake Action Committee is Teresa Harborth, and she owns that one large parcel at the very end, and she wants this change. Mm-hmm. Secondly, the other thing about there's density slope requirements that restrict development, and the parcels that I'm affiliated with have mountains, have hills, which really restricts the amount of parcels that can go in there. So it wouldn't be that much of a change, and if change ever occurs, it wouldn't be for probably at least one generation. This is a long-term decision here. It's for the future growth of Lake County.
All right. Thank you. We will now close public input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring it back to the GPAC. Margaret.
Madam Chair, I move that GPAC recommends a pause on the proposed Lower Lake zoning changes pending better understanding of the water availability to the parcels.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I didn't catch that whole motion. Pause of voting changes to consider. What was that, Margot?
Pending better understanding of the water availability to the parcels.
I just want to point out that we have only looked at one of the two Lower Lake changes. So to include in the motion that Lower Lake changes
Yes.
would be contrary to.
How about we look at the second Lower Lake change first and then come back to this, since I'm not sensing a second to this. Is there a second? No. Dies for lack of a second. All right. So
This is Donna,
Donna.
from Environment GPAC, Donna Mackwitz. I would second this.
Okay, we have a second.
And I would like the discussion to continue because I do see problems with this next one also.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with the permission of the one who moved and one who seconded, can we pause this motion and hear the rest of Lower Lake first? Okay, let's do that.
Okay. So I will pan to the other potential change area here, which is right on the border with Cobb.
Allison, we're not.
Allison, your map is down.
Yeah, we need the screen shared.
Oh. Hopefully that's
It's
showing
showing
now.
now. Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's these grouping of parcels here with the pink boundary that are proposing to change from suburban residential reserve to local commercial.
I can speak to that one. This is part of the Siegler Springs redevelopment area. And part of one of the surveys or actually all of the second surveys that went to all different areas of the county showed a very strong support for mixed use, which is co-location of residential and commercial uses on a parcel. This subdivision was destroyed in Valley Fire and is starting to get rebuilt with kind of a different vision than what we've had before. This is planned to be more of a hamlet, which is going to be sort of its own little micro community with commercial and residential combined. So it'll be sort of a walkable neighborhood and sufficient. In order to make that happen, assuming that there will be support to approve more open mixed use in commercial areas for residential, this land use designation amendment would serve to support that sort of hamlet style housing development in the future for the neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, and so I guess we would open it to questions from the GPAC.
This is Donna Makowitz. I misspoke. I thought that the area we were going to be discussing next was near Anderson Marsh State Historic Park. So I withdraw.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
Yes.
So I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not clear on what the change is. So it's going, this is a rezoning?
No, we are not doing zoning changes today. This is all specific to land use designations.
Okay.
It's kind of connected to zoning in that after we're done amending land use designations, through Lake County 2050 project, then we're going to follow up and do a county-led rezone map because by law, our zoning districts must mirror the general plan, land use designation.
So the main change is that this is going to be mixed use, right?
The main change is that those parcels in pink would go from suburban reserve to local commercial, which would then allow for mixed use, but not necessarily guarantee it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the GPAC? All right.
Anybody?
We'll open it to public input.
I've got two parts, and one is just should be really quick, and it was a question someone just asked. What about the property at Anderson Marsh? If you're saying there's only two, because that was the biggest greened area that was on the map that I got, was where they were going to rezone into low density or high density. It was
Allison,
all greened out there in Anderson Marsh.
Allison, can you zoom out a little bit?
If this is number two, then there's three.
I don't see any.
Let's see.
And someone else just asked that same question. That was the main reason I came.
Okay, head up, zoom in toward the lake. I'm trying to find the highways so we can go up 53.
Marsh there.
Nothing in Anderson Marsh.
There was 71 acres out there they were going to rezone.
As part of the LAPAC recommendations. Marty, do you remember that? I don't remember that.
Not on there.
I have it as it not in Lake County's control.
Exactly that, and the fact that we were looking, I think the only time that discussion came up was when we were looking at mixed use, because we have all these businesses in downtown, and again, we were focusing on downtown Lower Lake, but we have all these businesses in downtown Lower Lake with empty buildings that potentially could become residents. And we did talk a little bit about going out Kugelman, but I don't ever remember a discussion about Anderson Marsh. Sorry.
Well, that was the one. It was the Kugelman Street properties. It was on Kugelman.
Okay, we had talked about these commercial areas on Kugelman becoming mixed use.
But we weren't going to change the land use designation for that,
No.
though, because there are already PDC out there, I think.
A couple of them were ag, a couple of them were, and then the remaining of them was resort or something like that, which is, kind of far-fetched.
Question, so this one is not on the table today for a land use
Let's,
designation change?
we'll go ahead and take a look into that, Wes, and if we need to, we'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
then-
you.
Then I'll be quiet on that. On this other change, that particular area before the fire, that was a big horse ranch and stuff all out there. That was beautiful land out there, man. That's great. It's the bottom of the creek. It's where the erosion came down and made some beautiful soil, and to turn that into commercial or whatever, to make that hamlet, you can let people build back.
This is in Loch Lomond.
Huh?
This is in Loch Lomond. This is Shenandoah Road in Loch Lomond is what we're talking about.
I thought this was in Lower Lake at the bottom of Stigler's. Oh, okay. I'm sorry then. Thank you.
We have Holly Harris.
That's Holly.
She's the chair.
Thank you,
Hi,
Holly.
I just wanted to mention that the parcels, I think that they were talking about at Anderson Marsh, you can't see on this particular map because of all the zoning, but if you click off that, it was there in the bright green outline as being part of a discussion on the housing element.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So there are some areas that we are going to handle in the next meeting, and including or added to the Lake County 2050 project was the Housing Action and Implementation Plan. Part of that plan is to identify areas that are zoned, that are currently not zoned for residential, but are prime potential for residential development. We'll go into that in our next meeting. Just as a time check, as we're moving forward, I think we've got a little bit of our kinks worked out procedurally, but if we don't finish going through these groups today, we're going to add this to the agenda on next week's meeting. It is likely that community growth boundaries and planning area boundaries won't take as much deliberation, but I want to make sure that we're not pushing you. You have to have the time to do your talk, but if so long as we can just keep moving forward.
All right, so in this, back to this particular recommendation, are there any other members of the public who wish to speak?
We have one hand in Zoom.
Okay.
Roberta Lyons, would you please unmute yourself? Roberta, are you there? Okay. I see no other public input.
At least
Please
not,
come to the mic.
not on Zoom, right?
No others in Zoom.
Hi, I don't know if I'm asking the right question, but.
What's your name?
Travis Harborth. And where you guys were talking about Kugelman on the backside of, it's off North Road, and it's planned community development right now, and I have an offer on the property, an escrow, I already asked for extension.
As the purchaser.
As the purchaser. And I went to the planner already. We went to the preliminary application to see if what we want to do is okay. And we had our meeting with Public Works and everybody. Everybody didn't have a problem with what we wanted to do. But now the zoning is on your map to change. So my question is, if we get our permit process started for a major use permit and you change on us, what are we going to do? Because it's a $200,000 investment, and we don't want to be stuck with a piece of property we can't do what we can or thought we could do on it.
Thank you, Travis. Yeah, I
And it's very time sensitive because I need to give the realtor
I absolutely appreciate your question, and Pablo can describe to you the zoning article about legal nonconforming, which is what happens when something is approved and then a land use designation changes later. You still have your entitlement.
So you're saying.
But actually, if we could take this offline, I don't know that we're even going to talk about that region. That's what we have to research and maybe bring back next week. So make sure Pablo has your contact information, and we're going to bring you up to date if that's even a discussion.
It closes escrow tomorrow.
We will let you know tomorrow.
I left a voicemail for you.
Good, thank you.
The information.
Yeah, I hear the urgency. I get it. Yeah, we'll get right back to you on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I see no other public input.
We have one here. No? Yes? Okay.
That's
All
our
right,
planner.
so we will close public input then on this and bring it back to the GPAC. Any comments from the committee?
I'm familiar with this area, and support the change. So that would be a benefit to that community.
Say one more time, there's nothing there now, because
No, those are all homes. Well,
To redevelop residentially.
this was all burned in the Valley Fire.
Yeah.
correct.
So,
So is it being built back?
yes, but they want to do mixed use on the properties.
Okay, mixed use in the pink areas. Got
That
it.
is the current, that
Okay,
is the
thank you.
request.
Kind of like a little center of retail around residential neighborhood.
A walkable community.
Yeah, we just don't have hamlets in our planning yet.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, let's get some.
I like it.
All right. Any other comments, questions from the GPAC?
We have one hand in Zoom. Benjamin, would you unmute yourself, please?
I'm very familiar with this project and I support it as well.
All right. So it sounds like we have general support. I'm not hearing any opposition to this project. Can we pause your motion from before and just take this one up and go ahead with it? Kind of a motion to
I'll make a motion to support.
Make that motion.
support. A second. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
And those
Aye.
on Zoom, if anyone opposes, please let us know. All right.
Who seconded that? Just for, was it, oh, Phil? Okay,
Phil?
thanks.
All right. So let's get back to the other.
I'm sorry, I need a clarification. It was just motioned and seconded to,
Support the
Support the
hamlet.
recommendation from the LPAC.
thank you.
All right.
I saw no dissenting hands in Zoom.
No dissenting hands on Zoom. All right.
Donna withdrew her second from Margot's motion.
All right. So we'll go back to Margot's motion and Donna's second. We have a motion. Go ahead and read it again, please.
The motion, GPAC recommends a pause on the proposed Lower Lake zoning change pending better understanding of water availability to the parcels.
If I could make a suggestion, just so it fits in our grant timeline, to incorporate Margot's motion. At this point, it would just mean there was no recommendation, but you would be asking us to bring it back to you probably at the next meeting.
So can you amend your motion to ask staff to bring it back?
Yes.
All right.
So it would be like a motion of no recommendation, but a request to bring it back.
GPAC requests that staff bring back more information about water availability to the parcels affected by the proposed Lower Lake zoning change.
All right. And Donna, your second supports that?
Yes, this is Donna Makos. I second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is it
We will do
any
our best.
Any
I am-
discussion?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I am not aware of any moratorium at this time, so we will try to reach out to Lower Lake Water, but
Right.
I may not get a capacity study
Then we'll
or
have to
report
address it at
back
that
from them.
time.
Yeah, but I'll bring you back what we get.
Okay. Water may not be the only issue. Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly support this motion because it's just a motion to get additional information. But on the larger issue, this committee, set up as a county-wide, advisory committee, has to wrestle with the balance between, rural land and development of the county. Without development, we'll continue to, suffer a lot of the problems that we do have, where there's insufficient funds to take care of health issues, wildfire issues, so forth and so on. But we as a committee have to somehow balance that overall. When you come down then to a specific issue in a specific area, my inclination is to say we'd be micromanaging in a sense to take a position one way or the other, because there is conflict within the local area about the advisability of this. To me, it's a local issue. Not that I'm trying to duck the hard choices on this, but making it on a particular property I find very difficult, because I don't see the big picture yet. well, is this a major piece of what we'll end up deciding is a way of dealing with housing and growth? Or is it really just it would just be a little piece of this, and maybe this is one issue where you would come down on the side of preserving some rural lands? I haven't seen the lands, or what's there, or what can be done. I'm kind of saying it's kind of too small of an issue, or to focus just on the issue, to take a specific stand. We've heard it. We certainly should. I'm glad you're asking for more information to inform us better about what the pros and cons here are. But and I hope we don't have to do this on every little piece of land. The one just before this, there seemed to be community support for it, and so we should say, well, sure, community thinks that's okay, so we can't see anything wrong with it. But the other issue, though, there is obviously differences of opinion on what the community wants or doesn't want, and I'm loath to override that unless there are circumstances that say, unless we do this, we're abrogating our responsibility to find new places for people to live, and I don't have a sense of that, where this is in the broad scheme of things. So any motion concerning the advisability of doing this or not, I would abstain, because I just don't have a way of really differentiating.
You support this. You support this motion and currently.
For more information, that's great.
Go ahead.
I support reasonable growth, so what is reasonable and where is it reasonable at, but the rural lands are a huge thing to me of maintaining that. We also have a mechanism in the county, if someone doesn't like the zoning, to go through the planning process and to get that changed for that specific lot without doing a broad brush pull. Yep. So I think leaving those options open to the property owner to go to that single use, single time item instead of the broad brush of changing a whole bunch of parcels at one shot without all that information, and then including the community review, the EIR, all the other components of that would show those impacts of those single lots versus the bigger ones would be.
But if we went on record as opposing that zoning change overall, then it's going to be a pretty tough uphill fight for an individual.
I think we can take no stand on the change, but it's going to come together with the LAPAC as our recommendation to the county, and they can look at it and go, what is the county's view? And weigh it.
And I would just say the LAPAC process, that's kind of the due diligence. When they've met, they've had the conversation in the community, we have some kind of level of understanding that they've already gone through those steps, and so to go against that, we need to have good debate and good conversation in terms of, is this really the right thing? But I also feel like if the LAPAC recommended that, they've done the due diligence and have, done that stuff for the most part, so.
All right, great, thank you.
We have one hand in Zoom, Denise.
Hi, who's in Zoom?
Kyle, you want to unmute yourself?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think that I don't think maybe it has to be a yes, we're in favor of what the LAPAC recommends, or no, we're not in support of it. I agree with the previous speaker that maybe we should just make a recommendation of, yes, we're in support of we would be in more favor of letting the landowners make the decision on how they could rezone it in the future. Perhaps that could just be a recommendation that we make to the county, alongside what LAPAC will also be providing as input. So I think it's good to have these discussions on record, so that these discussions can be taken from this meeting, going to the people that are going to be making the ultimate decision. So I think we should somehow capture these important discussions and submit those as recommendations, because I do appreciate that the suggestion of, we're not opposed to it, but if it's going to happen, we would prefer it to have the landowners make those recommendations to change.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I see no other hands in Zoom.
All right, given no other hands in the Zoom, let's bring it back to the committee to vote on the motion to delay pending additional information. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? I don't know if anyone's opposed in Zoom.
Didn't look
Okay,
as
looks
though
like
they
that motion
were.
carries.
All right, 2 down, 6 to go. On to the next one. Kelseyville.
She says with a rise.
Allison.
On to Kelseyville. Okay, so in Kelseyville, couple changes here. The first one is here. This is, I believe. Yep. Let's look at the current designation. This is a change, I believe, from
Agriculture to
agriculture,
medium density
yes,
residential.
to medium density residential. And then the other set of changes that we're looking at are over here on the east side of the Kelseyville community growth boundary. And these are being proposed to change from low density residential to medium density residential.
Okay, let's go back to the first one.
Okay.
A lot of the discussion in Kelseyville LAPAC centered on where can we put housing. We know we want housing, but we don't want it in certain places. So where would be acceptable? This parcel in front of you is a smaller ag parcel. Let's see. I'm in Rivieras. Let me get to Kelseyville one moment. And the group decided that that might be an appropriate location then for medium density residential due to its proximity to commercial. So it's access to municipal infrastructure. And Sharon, if you disagree with me, let me know.
No.
But I think that's what we did. That's what I got from my notes. And then going over to the second one, over the other parcels are large, currently zoned for single residential development, which is, if it has municipal water and sewer, is down to a 6,000 square foot minimum parcel size. But the LAPAC decided that this is right near all the schools. And so let's focus our housing, our multifamily residential housing, or our medium density residential into an area that is in close proximity to the schools. Because one of the problems that Kelseyville is prioritizing to fix in the near future, but struggles with right now, is safe routes to school for our kids. A lot of them are walking along roads that don't have sidewalks. And so that's why the group focused on that area to concentrate additional housing. It's because right now they're pretty wide open, but they're right next to the schools.
Okay.
And Weston, if there's anything I missed, I know that you were real helpful in that
parcels
meeting.
to look at in this
Nope,
region?
that's it.
Okay. Questions from the GPAC? Yes.
What was the size of the first parcel?
I think it's like 8 acres. Let me take a look. Oh, thank you.
3.2.
I have a
also-
question too.
It's an ag piece.
Where does the LAFCO process fit in this? I mean, they really discourage converting ag land to any other.
Sorry, I was just taking a look at, oh yeah, okay. I was still stuck
It's
on
about 8 acres.
Yeah, thank you.
Will this have to go through LAFCO in order to have that kind of change?
Not that I'm aware of. No, this would be a land use designation change, just like any of the others that you're recommending.
Yeah, but it's going from ag,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind
And those are rare.
yeah.
Yeah, because I did impress upon all the LAPACs the board's overall hesitance to take anything out of ag. So with that knowledge, they were still looking for places for housing and identified this one as proximity to the highway as a good spot to convert for ag or from ag.
Any other comments, questions?
Just a concern that it is ag, it has been ag, and hopefully not to get myself in trouble, it was the landowner who wanted it that way, which may be not unusual. I don't think that the ag community would support that.
Got it.
making that major change.
Margaret?
I just wanted to recap some of the LAPAC, the Kelseyville LAPAC discussion, and that was there were concerns raised about preserving ag lands, and that conversation was not resolved in terms of consensus. So this is a thorny issue.
Any other questions from GPAC? All right. On Zoom? Yes? Okay. So we'll open it for public comment.
I'm glad to hear the board has laid out at least one rule that they didn't like the idea of converting from straight ag to anything really, and that's great. That's very noble, and part of it, I don't know if you guys are aware, and I'll just be brief on that one part. This one part is that when you take ag away, that there's a little known rule, regulation or whatever in California, that to bring it back, you've got to, especially if it's for the medium density and the high, the high density or medium density for the housing, for the multiple housings. If you take it away and you zone it for that, and then down the road let's just say the developer never shows up to buy that property. Once it's zoned, maybe they'll buyer will come along. Maybe they have a buyer. Who knows? We don't really know. But if they don't find a buyer and then they say, well, we want to make this ag again. To make that back to ag, they have to find 3 other properties in this county equal in acreage, the zone to the medium high density land, before that can be reverted. And Myra, if I'm wrong, correct me. Do you know? I think I asked you that at the ag meeting we had in here.
I'm sorry, I was actually looking at the.
Oh, okay.
Could you
Well,
repeat that one?
Your answer then was in the affirmative, that it is true, that once you take that ag away, it's a catch-22. It ain't never going to come back. And I can tell you, I'm a farmer. I'm a market gardener. I grow for the community. I don't grow to sell to the stores. I don't grow for profit. I grow for the community. I do get tax advantages because I lose money every year. Norm is the same way. He's going to be a new farmer here at our markets. And he's not looking to make money. He just wants to share with the community too. And I can tell you that, I'm in Lower Lake. The land I'm on is full of clay. It's not very good land. It's rocky and it's clay and sandstone. And where Norman's at, it's solid. It's sandstone blocks as big as these tables here. But he's growing in it. And to take Kelseyville land, that flat bottom that's out there, we're so blessed up here in Lake County to have that little valley, even though nobody's really known what to do with it. They grew walnuts out there, they grew pears out there, now they're growing grapes out there. They don't really know what really goes well. Just about anything grows up here in Lake County. You can grow almost anything. And that land, to take that land away, okay, I'll finish up. To take that land away, I would hate to see that happen. There's farmers that would lease that. If it's barren right now, there's people that would lease that and go out there and grow for the community. And it won't be long, we'll be needing more local stuff, guaranteed by it's not about 2025, it's about between now and 2050. You're going to wish there was more local stuff up here.
Thank you.
Daniel, would you unmute yourself and then we'll take you at the podium. Go ahead, Daniel.
Can't hear.
Okay, come on to the podium, and Daniel, you can go right after this gentleman.
If Daniel's ready, I'm more than willing to wait. Madam Chair, good afternoon. My name is Tom Lasik. this relates to not only this issue here, but also the one we were discussing previously. It's my hope that, I mean, it's obvious we need housing. We've lost a tremendous amount of homes in the fires just in the last 10 years, and we still have yet to recover. We do need to improve our commercial availability. There's no doubt about that. We are a county of modest resources and modest means. What I'm concerned about is that through this process of planning, there seems to be some people that might be taking advantage of the process for their own personal opportunity. Sure, we need housing, but and sure, we need commercial opportunity, but we're going after ag land that I think has been repeated multiple times. Once it's gone, it's gone. And it seems to me that it's like, well, hey, I've got a realtor here that wants to make a deal, or maybe a generation down, I might want to sell my own land. I think that's fine, but I don't know if that's part of a larger policy for housing. I don't know if that's a larger policy for commercial development. I'd like to see it be more comprehensive, more policy driven. I'd like to see it where, sure, there is a person that might want to, put in a car dealership or something like that. That's fine, but to use this process to get it zoned in favor of a particular small set of individuals, I think is not in the spirit of what we should be doing as a county. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'll bring it back just with a question. This topic has come up obviously with the parcels in Lower Lake as well, and it's coming up here, I think, too. It seems to me that the LAPACs were given direction to find places where growth could happen for housing in the future, given that there's a need for housing in the county. Is it possible for us to take any of the recommendations that look like it was trying to comply with that directive and talk about that all at once so that we can kind of get the big picture as we talk about these things? I mean, one at a time, it makes sense to look at them, but it seems to me that the issue is the housing element, essentially.
Thank you. Yeah, I picked up on that with what Phil was talking about, having a good overview sense, which is kind of the role of the GPAC. So what I was talking to staff about is scheduling a GPAC meeting where you're going to get a presentation and an update of the Housing Action Implementation Plan so that you sort of do have that holistic understanding, because what you are seeing is an example of that pressure that we have to develop housing. And to just speak to the recommendations that have come through the LAPAC but originated by a property owner, they're invited to do that right now. They're not, this is the one time where you can get it to go through community review to see if it's consistent with that community's vision of what they want to see. Anytime you can come and apply for it, and we go through that same process, it's just you don't have the same access to the community visioning process and the community group that has come together and been appointed to speak about what we want to see. So I look at it as these are opportunities that property owners are welcome to do because it's looking at where we want to go for the community. And they're also welcome to do it on their own. It's just a lot more money and takes a lot more time. And so it's kind of going through the same community visioning vetting process just right now because we're doing it all together rather than alone separately.
I do feel we're in the weeds.
We are very much in the weeds.
And it would be good to have that overview and get a sense of where,
indeed,
generally where the pressure can be relieved for housing. And also, yes, it's hard to create housing on burned lots, right? But we have a lot of subdivided land that is available.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, I think
we also need to recognize that we have a dire shortage of housing at all economic levels.
Exactly.
And there are some home buyers or renters that may not look at a redeveloped or a burnt lot as an option.
Exactly. Yeah. Good.
So
Thank you.
we need variety.
Phil?
Yeah, and in the same vein, and this is a rhetorical question, so you know, it would be really good if some of the people, and we're speaking here today, who know the land, who've, you know, lived on the land, seen what it's been used for over the years, weigh in and say, you know what, there's this ag land in this area here that probably a better use for it would be a place for people to live or build a new business or, you know, do something other with, because either it's really crappy land or in the broad scheme of things, this is not, you know, the land that we really should preserve the most. Because otherwise, we're just, every meeting, it's anytime any land that's currently ag is proposed to be changed into, you know, something for people to build houses on or commercial enterprises have, be opposed, then, I mean, you know, we don't have any place to go other than just to say,
I would
well, okay.
offer that that is the purpose of a
I don't think
LAPAC.
I don't think this group is going to come to a position that says absolutely no ag lands in Lake County will be converted to any other use. I mean, that's not a position I don't think this group's going to ever be willing to take. So we've got to find a, you know, middle ground on some of these proposals, I think.
Thank you. Recognize. Yeah.
I'm going to turn these on and off. Not only housing, I think I mentioned to you, Maria, that when we look at everything, you know, this piece, this piece, this piece, as you said, we miss the whole thing. I had mentioned that in looking for commercial, for instance, in the Kelseyville, Lakeport area, maybe we look at that whole area as what's commercial available and look at it in its entirety. Otherwise, as we sort of have done and we're saying, we look at these little guys and we try to make a good decision here. Then we go over here and look at these guys and again try to make a good decision. They may be be compatible. They may be you know, not. But I think it's more than just housing. It's the whole. How are we going to grow ourselves, being respectful to as many parts and pieces as we can?
I think that's one of the things that's inherent of a GPAC looking at a LAPAC recommendation, because the LAPAC did have that community-wide viewpoint during their discussions. But what you're seeing are just the recommendations, not necessarily their whole conversation of taking a look at the whole community. And so I can understand why it may seem a little discordant now that it gets to you, because it seems like little one-off recommendations when actually it's the result of an overall community-wide conversation.
Mireya, it seems to me too that the GPAC has a unique role, and that is to look at the big picture. And you know, the example I'll give are Dollar General stores, right? Every community might get a Dollar General proposed in their community. It could show up. And until you look at the whole picture, like, are they popping up everywhere? You know, you don't really have a sense for what's really happening. And so for our purposes, it seems to me it's not just the housing element, there are a few other elements as well, but it seems to me our role is actually to look at the bigger picture. And it would help if we sort of understood and we're given the benefit of, you know, the conversations around the whole county for that big picture as opposed to each individual area.
I am hearing overarching themes coming from your discussion tonight. One, you value housing. Two, you value the preservation of agriculture. Three, you want to make sure that our development and expansion is done in a smart way and not, you know, just willy-nilly wherever we go. And I think that those themes, as far as recommendations that go forward to the board, just like that, are also very valuable. So I agree. Maybe just looking at from recommendation to recommendation may not be the best way we want to go. Maybe we want to have an overarching statement to the board of what the GPAC values and leave that to the board to help them with their LAPAC recommendations.
A process question now. It seems that we are benefiting from getting a look at each of these recommendations from the LAPAC. So we get through them, look at the recommendations. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels, but I mean, I for one would be okay delaying the vote on accepting those recommendations or, you know, coming up with our own. I would be okay with delaying that until we get the bigger picture and see them all and see sort of where these committees are coming up with the solutions to the problems you've identified. Then we come back, look at the overall housing element in particular, because that seems to be driving a lot of this.
Okay.
So sorry to interrupt, but some of these are really not contested. So what I would say is this low density to medium density residential across from a school, to me, that's not a big change and an easy one to go. Can we separate out the contested versus the low-hanging fruit, so to speak?
We may want to switch to handling community-wide presentation of the changes recommended by the LAPACs and voicing any concerns that the General Plan Advisory Committee might want the board to take into consideration when looking at the LAPAC recommendations. How's that? Rather than taking each recommendation and going, yeah, no. Instead, you're giving us general themes of what is important to GPAC that could easily be conveyed to the board. So maybe that's where we'll pivot to. Okay.
Also, do we still have public input open on this item? Because we do have Daniel back in Zoom wanting to make public comment.
Daniel,
unmute yourself, please. Daniel. Okay, Daniel left or something. How about Benja? Benja, can you unmute yourself, please? Sam, any reason that they might not be able to be heard?
Did you have to push?
If you do not have a mic connected, you may put your comment in the chat. Okay, I think we can move on.
that's it for a Zoom participant.
Daniel, could you try again, please?
Can you guys hear me now?
We can, thank you. Daniel,
Great.
go ahead.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I'd like to back up the comments that the gentleman made earlier about preserving the good quality ag ground in the Kelseyville area. And my other concern about adding medium density and high density housing units in the Kelseyville area is overloading the resources that are there, the school in particular. And also, I don't understand how we can put in more housing when we're not creating any more water. You know, where's the water storage? Where's the water supply? Are you just going to take ground out of agriculture and then pump the groundwater for the residential uses? And those are just some of my concerns that I have.
Thank you, Daniel. Benja, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me this time?
We can, thank you.
Wonderful. I would like you guys to definitely wait on any kind of contested or uncontested ideas from the LPAC. I've noticed a lot of deficiencies in all the general plans in the Northern California area in relation to climate resilience and renewables. And I would love to have you guys be super aware that in the next couple of years, if we did something like a zoning plan for 100 acres per 5,000 people of renewables, that would give us all free electricity-ish, right? There's a lot to it, but for example, Lakeport's got 5,000 people. Let's take 100 acres and make sure it can be turned to renewables, whether it be solar, geothermal, biogas, or other, even battery storage or hydro storage. Same thing, Clear Lake. Let's take 300 acres because there's about 15,000 people and have some kind of general plan to get to 100%, actually 200% renewable, so our county can get a dividend for our renewable energy that we make, much like Alaska does, because they create a lot of oil. I'd like to see Lake County be in a position to pay its citizens a dividend from renewables within the next couple of years. And the water storage thing that the gentleman mentioned fits perfectly into this. We have a Middle Creek restoration project that's going on. I know that would be a great place to add a bunch of storage, not necessarily in his neighborhood, but it does go with the overall California plan for more water storage and would love to see the same kind of thing put toward wetlands, about 100 acres per 5,000 people of wetlands. So I'm up here on Cobb, and right now it's raining a ton. And if we could store this water in large kind of earthen dams and ponds, it would help the whole community, including the delta smelt and other habitats. So thank you guys for the comment.
Thank you, Bedja.
Thank
I
you.
see no other hands in Zoom.
All right, so public input continues here.
Yeah, I forgot this part when I was up here before, and I agree with our CAL FIRE representative up here, is that it's a thumbs up on that other lot in Kelseyville. I mean, when you think about rezoning, you know, when I say read something, you know, they're going to rezone for medium density, high density, or whatever housing. That's what you think about. Is you think about the resources that are already there, the infrastructure that's already there, the community that's already there, sidewalks that are already there, grocery stores that are already there, schools are already there, you know, medical or whatever, and you put all that stuff together, and that's a bingo. And so what you guys were talking about was making some kind of a guideline, you know, not a blanket. And I'm not for a blanket no on ag either, because there could be some really lousy places out here that a long time ago got zoned ag. I don't know. Maybe somebody had a ranch there that was a part-time, you know, like Shannon Vineyards has a sheep on a wetland over in Clear Lake Oaks that they let them down there when the water's not there, you know, and there was, I want to say it was 10, 15 years ago, the county was trying to make that high density. I was on a committee that fought that, and we got rid of that. And then Shannon bought the property, and they said, we'll graze sheep on it, because that's a high water part of the lake. That's part of what cleans up the lake. And so, yeah, evaluate each thing on its own merit, you know, but you could have some blanketly guidelines, you know, like this here we've got to really look at, you know, like if it's going to be the housing in the downtown, does it have the schools? Is it safe to get to the schools? Is it all this stuff? As it meets all these little items, you know, we start filling out the bingo card. And the same thing with the ag, and that's all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on down.
My name's Shannon Sanders. I'm from Middletown. I was actually still am part of the LAPAC in Middletown. And this is just kind of a general observation, because I really feel for you, all of you, because there's so much on your shoulders. And then it all of a sudden occurred to me that the processes, like when we were concerned about water or eagles' nests, there's the planning department, the planning commissioners, the supervisors. Even if there is an approval on any of these, it's still going to be scrutinized. So it can take a little burden off your shoulders, and you don't have to be a supervisor, a planning commissioner. You don't have to be all things in one, because I feel for you, because it's like you're looking at just every little detail, and some of those things will be scrutinized further down the process. So just a thought. I hope that was okay.
Excellent thought. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
First, my name is Kimes, like New York Times, but with a K. So, yeah, and I want to qualify it. I'm probably autistic. My view of the world is not normal most places. It might be in Lake County, but most other places not. I'm not opposed. I'm not an advocate of no growth. Obviously, there's over 3 times the population on this planet from when I was born. It's going somewhere. The other part of this is, in my lifetime, I have never seen a 25-year plan worth of shit. And to have the responsibility to develop that is impossible, because you don't know the future. No one would have predicted where we are today 5 years ago. So, but all I know how to do is what I can do personally. I got 5 buildings on my place. Every one of them has been occupied. Right now, only one is. The Valley Fire killed 50,000 trees on our acreage. try and reforest best we can. Every building, if I live long enough, we'll go ahead and remediate the age damage and fix what we can and let people move in. I'm 73. I'm not going to be able to farm too long. I need help. So I'm willing to trade a place to live, water from a spring. We'll put in solar power. That's my solution. It's not going to work for everybody. I built houses for a living. I watched Black Hawk Ranch go from a massive cattle ranch with all these fossils to a place where I don't even like the people who live there. I don't want that here. It's obviously economically advantageous to take a parcel, chop it into little pieces. You know how much your anticipated profits are right out the front. You get your financing, it's good. You take a burned out lot in Lake County, and it's going to cost $450,000 to build a little house. There's no guarantees. This is the poorest county in the state. We're going to have financial problems every year until long after I'm dead. It's just a fact that we have to deal with it. Is it worth the quality of our life that we have, that we're immersed in every day? I think so, even with the 21,000 cars a day pass by place. I'd love to have trenches across Highway 29. Stop them on each end. They're not going to do that for me. So we have to try and solve some of these things ourselves. Your job is impossible. It's impossible. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Think about it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Anyone else from the public? All right, we'll bring it back to the GPAC for comment. I thought I heard the start of a motion. Oh, go ahead and comment.
Comment, please.
Okay.
I wanted to voice support for Phil's and Sharon's and Maria's suggestion that we have subject matter experts in the local areas, and we get more information on where is it possible to have more housing. And we talked about mixed use before, but I think to bring it back home, pardon the pun, is to take a look at where are the infill opportunities in these areas? Because I sense the same, if not frustration, bewilderment. It's like, wow, we're operating in the dark here. We're getting these proposals one at a time, but we're not seeing the big picture. Where are the opportunities? And like Sharon pointed out, the commercialization, the commercial areas, where are the opportunities? Just walking through Kelseyville, you see a lot of shops, they're shuttered. And I don't know the quote unquote industrial area of Kelseyville well, but again, there might be infrastructure there which might be very good for housing. But we don't know, not right now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we can get really philosophical. I mean, no one does know the future, but it probably not going to look too much like the past. I mean, there are big, huge movements taking place in population. I see it because in my little community, we get people coming in buying houses, and they're actually selling. You know, we sell about one a month or so, but the people who are coming because they can work from home, and that's I mean, people are doing that now. All the .com companies, all AI's coming down the stream, all of that kind of job, high-paying jobs for people don't have to be done in a factory or in a brick-and-mortar building somewhere. They can be done where you live, and guess what? You're right, people like to live here. And so the biggest concerns are things like broadband capacity is a limiting factor for us because they need that. The issue of, well, where's the water coming from? Well, in 1962-ish or so, there was, in the area that I live in, there was nothing. There was some chamise growing on the hillside, and whatnot. And somebody came in and said, I think I'll build a community here, you know. And people at that point probably said, well, where are you going to get the water? There's no water, I didn't know. And his answer was, no, I'll build a water plant then. And so we have 3 communities there that run their own water plants. That's where they got the water. There was enough of an investment so that they were able to build the roads. They built water treatment plants. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. Our task is not to solve all those problems, you know, for a potential developer or someone who wants to use the land. The moment you start doing that, you'll never approve anything, you know, because we don't know the solutions to things like water issues and waste disposal and roads and all of that. But there are people that do. And if you give them an opportunity in this county to build, they will, you know. Otherwise, they'll build someplace else, you know. That's just the way it goes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and start a motion.
We also have Marty on Zoom, and she's GPAC member.
Okay.
Marty, unmute
Let's
yourself,
go with,
please.
before the motion, let's go with Marty.
Yeah, Marty, unmute yourself, please.
I was just going to make a motion that in essence of time, that we not make a motion on each and individual proposal, but look at them as a whole. So go to each of them to see them, but then look at them as a whole and move forward from there, because we're never going to get through all of these. And again, I have to reiterate, each of these local planning committees, you know, had heartfelt, long hour, multiple discussions over these, and they know their areas better than any one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. And I think, just from my perspective, I think we can trust that the local area planning areas have spent a great deal of time on this. With that, you have potentially a motion, right?
Yeah, I think a good compromise would be to take the 4 lots that are the low-hanging fruit, do those as an approve, and then table the other.
Table the
until
other
after-
for later
to
discussion.
the next meeting. So that'll be my motion to accept the recommendation of the LPAC for the 4 lots identified in the presentation, and table the decision on the other west side of Kelseyville to the next meeting.
This is Kyle. I'll second.
Yeah, Kyle? Did Kyle have something to say there?
Oh, I just said I'll second.
He seconded. Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone?
Aye.
One opposed? Oh,
Yes,
maybe
I
a slow
oppose.
aye. Okay.
Marty opposed.
All right.
Doesn't matter. I oppose.
I oppose. Okay, great. So motion carries. And where are we now? What's next?
Well, it's late in the day, and we've had some actual fundamental discussions about really maybe we're on the wrong premise. Maybe we started with the wrong assumptions that the General Plan Advisory Committee had a responsibility to evaluate and rule on each LAPAC recommendation, and I'm not really sure that that's going to get us where we need to go. We're going to add an update of the Housing Action and Implementation Plan to the beginning of the next meeting. I would recommend that we continue as we are going, but only as an update, not as a back and forth evaluation and ruling on each recommendation from the LAPAC. Let's keep the LAPAC recommendations as they are. Present them to the General Plan Advisory Committee, because you are right. You are supposed to have a holistic view. That presentation will also be then better informed by the Housing Action and Implementation Plan. And at that point, at the next meeting, if there are any overriding concerns that you will have a more holistic view of, having seen all of the different LAPAC presentations and can consider them holistically, let's collect your input at that time.
That sounds like a good plan. And I would say there are many processes where you can take all that input and have a vote on the part of this body where we take the items out that are of concern, but we vote on the rest. and then we deal with the ones of concern.
I think that's a better use of y'all's time as well as a better fit for your responsibility as GPAC members.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry I didn't start with that.
Okay.
That would have saved us a lot of time.
We're
So
learning.
with the last
We're all learning.
15 minutes that we have, let's go on to Middletown as a presentation only. Allison.
Okay. Yes, moving down to just a couple changes here. So the first, actually, these might be the only ones here. Yeah, the only two are both in or near the Middletown community growth boundary. And the first change, let me just scan to where my notes are for Middletown. Okay, so I think this one here further to the north, these were all previously various land uses, including rural residential and local commercial, and they are being proposed to all change to community commercial.
The discussion around this was centered on having additional what was considered more appropriate commercial opportunities. They are already developed with some residential, but with the introduction of mixed use, it would still be compatible. And instead of in the fringes out here having something like a surveyor's office or, you know, something that would fit in a local commercial, this would be something that would be more community-wide, possibly regional opportunities for commercial. And so that was supported by the LAPAC. On to the next one, please. Were there any questions on that one? Next, Allison.
All right, then this parcel down here, it is currently a split parcel with part of it as rural residential and the other part of it is rural lands. And then there's also a small sliver, I think that is part of the same parcel that is resource conservation, of course, per the riparian buffer. And the resource conservation area is not proposing to change at all. But the other two portions of the parcel that are rural residential or rural lands are being proposed to change to resort commercial.
The property owner brought this to the Middletown LAPAC because he wanted to be able to support commercial in that area. He actually was hoping for either local commercial or resort commercial, but after an extended discussion by the LAPAC, the members of the community felt more comfortable offering resort commercial activities. So something like a bed and breakfast or something that trails. There's a ridge line in there that you can't really see, but it would be, the community felt it would be much more appropriate if they were going to go commercial to offer it as more resort commercial options. And so it was a really interesting negotiation that took place during that LAPAC meeting where the property owner was amenable to resort commercial. And so that's why that one was approved. Next, Allison.
So I think.
Any questions?
I do have a question. So when that discussion took place, what were the major factors that had them wanting that change?
Part of it was the ridge line. There's a pretty steep sloped ridge line that sort of is almost a physical barrier, and so the access to that property is somewhat limited. So the group was more, let's bring something in where people are going to come and stay, not necessarily be going in and out all day long. So that's where that kind of steered toward that way.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before we move to the next one? Okay.
Great. Next one, Allison, I think that might be it for Middletown.
That's right. Yeah, that does it for Middletown, but we can move on to Rivieras and I can just keep going through them and give an overview if that works.
Thank you. I'm really hoping we can get all the way down to Shoreline because there were a number of changes there that were environmentally focused. And I know I've got Holly and Donna on here, so they'll be good
Okay.
to speak to that. But let's keep going.
Okay, great. So here for Rivieras, I think all of the proposed changes are in this one area here in the Clear Lake Riviera Community Growth Boundary. And the first set of changes are these parcels here, and they are currently suburban residential reserve. They're being proposed to change to low density residential. And the same thing for these two square parcels here outlined in the pink. These are also currently suburban residential reserve. They're being proposed to change to low density residential. And then the final set of changes we have here are this set of 3 parcels here, which is currently either rural residential or rural lands. And then I think the small square of public facilities is a utility. And these 3 parcels here that are either rural lands or rural residential are being proposed to change to resource conservation for the purposes of a community park. So that is the summary of the changes here in Clear Lake Riviera. Do you have more to add, Mireya, or should I keep
I
going
got
to
more.
the next spot?
So the Riviera's LAPAC really recognizes that what the Riviera's planning area has for it is housing. It's a group of subdivisions. And what they care about is, well, they recognize that this is a very good opportunity to increase the housing options in the Rivieras where it may not be appropriate, you know, like in ag or in other areas. So that's why they focused on those parcels. One of those big squares may end up being problematic, I don't know, but because there's a cell tower on it. And we didn't really talk about that in our discussions. So that's just for your, stick a pin in that one. One of the high priorities in the Riviera's LAPAC is a park. There's talk about converting the golf course to a park, but it's not like the county's talking about that. So what they looked for then was those areas that you see in blue. They thought, okay, that'd be a great place for the park because it goes down to the lake. The dogs can run around. You can have multi-use. You can have either lake access or just, bring your kids out for a picnic, that kind of thing. And so they focused on that area to switch to a park. And that's pretty much it for Rivieras.
Question, unless if anyone else has any questions on this as well. My question is, first of all, love the park idea. Yay for them. My question is, this area has some real access issues in emergencies. And when the first subdivisions were proposed, I'm sure that, maybe they didn't have that conversation, but there are some real access problems. If there's a fire through there, getting out of there is going to be a nightmare. And so my question is, did they have that conversation about adding more density of residential in an area that's already pretty stressed when it comes to evacuation?
A number of the people participating in the LAPAC are exactly the same people participating in the Soda Bay evacuation study.
Great.
So I know there's nobody that lives in the Rivieras that is not already always in recognition of the challenges for that. So even though we did not discuss that specifically as far as adding density, I know that there's no way that they weren't thinking about it.
Go ahead.
Let me just clarify the proposal is to change the density designation within the community already, or no?
Those larger parcels are currently suburban reserve. So yes, it would change it to low density residential.
Oh, okay.
Which would change the minimum parcel size. However, any future subdivision again would be dependent on accessibility to water. Like we'll serve for those sort of things too. And the parcel size is
Community
dependent.
growth boundary, it's within already. It's not asking to
Yes.
extend it.
Correct.
But it could be annexed to the.
It could be, or it could be subdivided to maybe a 1 acre parcel, which could then support a septic system. That would be up to the developers to decide.
That's good.
Any questions?
Good.
Moving on. Lakeport, please, Allison.
All right. Okay, so two change areas here in Lakeport. The first is a little bit smaller, and it's here in North Lakeport, and the proposed change is to change this parcel here from rural residential. Actually, this is a part of a larger parcel, I believe. And it would be changing the entire parcel. I might be wrong about that, so I shouldn't.
No, it's just changing that portion of a parcel to medium density residential. This is
Yes.
Walnut, so it's North Lakeport area. And the parcel is actually that long rectangle. So it goes alongside the already developed subdivisions that are currently, they currently have the low density residential in yellow. And the proposal that they considered was just that portion that you now see in orange, which is the lower sloped area of that parcel, be changed so that it would match the medium density residential adjacent to it, closer to the lake, and be developed with housing. Specifically, the idea was a senior housing, like a campus, college campus sort of theme to it, but just using that low slope area of that parcel. It would also tie into those roads that have already kind of been stubbed out on to the south of it, of the subdivision below it. So it would kind of just be an extension of that existing housing. Next, you're going to recognize this one,
and-
Denise.
Yes, this is the old Cristalago project. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. And currently, it is a mix of suburban residential reserve with these spots of resort commercial within it. And it is being proposed to entirely change to rural lands.
So Cristalago is a project that was finally approved by the board and rezoned to plan development commercial and plan development residential for an overall, it started out being a golf centered community. It ended up being like a winery centered community. It never got off the ground. So that use permit is actually expired, but because it was rezoned because of the project, the rezone doesn't automatically change. So the Lakeport LAPAC just wanted to get rid of that plan development, commercial plan development resort or residential, and just revert it back to what it was originally. So that's what is reflected here. It has steep slopes. It's in a remote area. It was rural lands because of that, and so they just wanted to go back to where it was.
Question. As I recall, that project maybe it was in the permit itself, but if the project never got developed, the intention of the board at the time, I believe, was to say that everything expires, right? So this moving it back would actually be in keeping with what that board thought.
The general plan of development, if it did not become a vested plan, would expire over time, just like our use permits do also. And so there's nothing going forward on this. Next, Allison, are we done with Lakeport?
Yes, we are finished with Lakeport. The final two are Cobb and Shoreline. We left those close for the bottom because they actually both have more groupings of changes. Each of those planning areas have 5 different clusters of changes. So and we originally had Cobb first on the agenda and then Shoreline. So should we keep
No, let's
going?
keep going. I'm going to
Okay.
take next steps off of our agenda because basically our next step is we're going to meet again next week. So good. We just got 5 minutes back. Let's keep going.
Okay, great. So for Cobb, there is the first one here. This little parcel is previously, well, it's not, excuse me. It's currently local commercial and it is being proposed to change to community commercial.
That was a discussion similar, and Paul, jump in if I get something wrong. That was a similar discussion in that they didn't want to just offer local commercial opportunities, but rather a more robust offering of potential commercial development in that location.
Okay, and then the next one here is this yellow, well, it is currently resort commercial. I think this is maybe a part of the Hoburg's area here. And this parcel is being proposed to change to low density residential, and then the adjacent parcels below it are being proposed to change either from resort commercial or from suburban residential reserve to medium density residential.
So Hoburg's, for those who may not be familiar, is an historic resort. It was, and it was a significant cultural loss during the Valley Fire when it was wiped out. Since then, there has been discussion about it getting revived, but nothing has taken place yet. And so the Cobb community took that as an opportunity to look for locations with housing. And so that's why they focused on that one. Next.
Okay, and then also in this area, we have this parcel here, which is currently rural residential, and it is being proposed to change to local commercial. And then south of that, we have this other parcel here, which is currently local commercial and is being proposed to change to community commercial.
The Cobb community is looking for an increase in options for commercial development. Local commercial can tend to be somewhat limiting, especially if you're in an isolated community. And so this would offer additional options. Paul, was one of those a community center? Okay. Mike.
That was the odd-shaped one that's pink right there. It's a community pool, and they're looking at just offering more, like you said, commercial options as far as
snack bar.
Yes.
Which you couldn't have where it currently is.
Correct.
And so this would just be building out the amenities to a community gathering place.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think we split that. Whereas
we only
previously it was all.
The recommendation was specific to the area that would in future be able to be used commercially.
Correct.
Next.
All right. Well, I think we actually did get through those pretty quickly. So let me just make sure. But it looks
Does
like
the GPAC have any questions?
Any questions?
Because I'll just pull you right through the end. So stop me.
We're on a roll
Okay. Last, shoreline communities.
Yay.
Okay. Moving down the shoreline here. I'll start first in the cluster of potential changes in the Clear Lake Oaks area. Okay, so we have a few changes starting from the eastern side. We have these two areas here, which are respectively being proposed to change from medium density residential, which is what this larger parcel is currently, to, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. It is currently high density residential, and it is being proposed to change to medium density residential. And the parcel across the highway there is currently service commercial and is being proposed to change to rural residential. So that's starting here at the east.
Also, Allison, just take a pause.
Yes.
I'd like Holly and Donna to both unmute because there are a number of recommendations in shoreline communities, and I can speak to some of them, but Holly and Donna are definitely better able to give you a summary. Okay,
Do you want me
going,
to say
Allison.
something right now?
Not yet. Let's wait till, unless there's something you want to point out. If not, we're going to keep going.
I just want to point out that the focus of LAPAC was that we did not want to extend commercial to the east side of Clear Lake Oaks, which is what was proposed in the last area plan. So that's part of where this is coming from.
Allison?
Okay, thank you. So moving northwest here along the highway. So our next set of changes on the northeast side here is this area, which is currently service commercial, and this one area is community commercial that lines the highway, is being proposed to change to rural lands.
Actually, that's agriculture. Those
Oh,
are
I'm sorry.
currently
You know, I
being
think my
used,
screen is getting a little darker.
yeah,
'cause now
those are
it's getting
currently
darker at
used
night. I
as
apologize.
vineyards. And so the LAPAC recommended switching it so it more accurately reflected its current use, as opposed to leaving it open to have something service commercial like a factory go in there.
Makes sense, okay.
Yes, thank you. That is the proposed change to agriculture from those various commercial designations. And below that, we have this area here with some of these large parcels that are currently designated for resort commercial or rural residential. And then part of it is resource conservation. And the proposed change is to convert the entire area to resource conservation.
Donna, did you want to speak to this one?
Excuse me, this is Donna. I think, Holly, you might like to chime in here, but I believe it's just the 80 acres on the, I can't see the parcel numbers, that we needed to change. Is that correct, Holly?
So it's the 4 parcels that are all in that aqua color, which
Okay.
we were asking, plus the little corner parcel, the teeny little triangle that's up in the upper left-hand thing, to resource conservation. Right now, it's the boat ramp that goes into the keys, and the crux to the wetlands restoration for the keys, et cetera, are these parcels.
Thank you. Next, Allison.
Next, we have this parcel here, which is currently, oh, I think this was one that was flagged for a potential change, but we didn't change it yet. There was
No,
suggest.
That one is actually Bob George's gas station, and it looked like it was erroneously changed to resource conservation, which would be great, but I bet he wouldn't like that.
Yeah. Holly was
Okay,
one
so
of the
this one-
people that I
Good
sent
call,
my
Holly.
notes to, because with shoreline communities, I was just hanging on. I was just trying to keep up with them. So, offering my planning advice. But yeah, they came ready. So I made sure that they rechecked my work.
Thank you.
Next one, Allison.
Okay, so sounds like that's no longer a change area. So moving on to this strip of parcels that are currently low density, or I'm sorry, they are currently medium high density residential, and they are being proposed to change to low density residential.
These are very teeny tiny parcels. I'd like you to see if you could stick an apartment on any of them. So it made sense.
This is Donna. I don't believe they have access to water or sewer either.
No, they do, but they're too small to utilize for it. And, the setbacks and the building heights just can't,
Support it.
you can't do high density.
Right. Go ahead, Allison.
All right, so moving on, I think there was a direction on this set of parcels to create this resource conservation buffer along the waterway, but I think there's actually 2 waterways here, because this one here where my cursor is, I believe that's Schindler Creek.
Correct.
And this is, which is going to be captured when we apply the 20-foot buffer around the Clear Lake Hitch tributaries layer.
Okay,
we
so
will-
this is one of the erroneous ones. So the long pink parcel right there to the right of Dollar General, that actually I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's divided into 2, but that parcel all behind Dollar General is part of that long aqua thing, and that parcel behind there is the one that has always been looked at for getting a retaining, basically a retaining watershed thing for Schindler Creek. So I don't know why it's still zoned, brown. And then we talked about if we couldn't do that behind Dollar General because it's a small lot, possibly up higher, the upper left aqua portion could be used for part of the watershed, restoration.
Could you
know,
take
as
off
well
the land
as
designation?
the going all the way up Schindler Creek.
Allison, could you get back to the aerial view?
Yes.
I think that'll be easier for us to see what Holly's talking about.
There you go.
Okay, go ahead. Say that again, Holly. 'Cause I
Okay,
can
so we
Dollar
see
General
we
now.
see Dollar General. You've got your cursor on it.
Yeah.
So the two pink parcels to the right there, actually, that's not correct. That also includes the area behind Dollar General. And so the area behind Dollar General, we were asking to change to resource conservation because that's where all of the, the studies have been done for creating, working with the Schindler Creek watershed. If that cannot occur because it is smaller, we also ask that the parcel up above in the pink rim be changed to resource conservation because that has a very good, it's larger and has a very good possibility of being, the restoration area.
So we could just remove those lopsided ones and change that to that what looks like open area behind Dollar General, right? Is that
I believe if you go in county GIS that is all part of the parcel on the right.
okay? Yeah. Well, I don't know why we couldn't do both. Let's do both.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Which brings up a good point. Sometimes some of these recommendations are for parcels that are not owned by people sitting in the room at that time. And since I've been with planning, we get these phone calls of people saying, I wanted to do this, but y'all changed the land use designation on my property when I wasn't paying attention. So what we're going to do this time is compile a roster, create mailing labels, and probably I need to find the right time in our timeline, but we're going to notify all of these property owners that they are specifically included in the changes instead of what is required by law, which is just like an advertisement, a 1/8 page in the newspaper, which nobody ever looks at anyway. So we're going to make sure this time that the property owners at least get an outreach attempt to let them know before it goes before the board for final decision. So.
If I could just make one quick statement here too, being on the original shoreline area plan, we went through all of these requests from property owners to change zoning. And we had a beautiful presentation that talked to us about a tasting room, things would be great, blah, blah, blah. We changed the zoning for the shoreline area plan, and then the property owner sold it to Dollar General. So just please, as GPAC members, think when you change zoning, or you recommend to change zoning, that anything that could be put on that particular zone could end up being put on the parcel. That was it.
Thank you. Anything else, Allison?
Yes, I think we can still, just this parcel up here, which is currently rural lands and is being proposed to change to resource conservation.
Yes, that is the extension of what Holly was talking about.
Yes, although I hear the change. I think this was just a misinterpretation of one of the parcel maps, but I hear that we're also making that change too. So that would be more
Could
continuous.
have been my misinterpretation on my notes too. So, yeah. All right. What else after that?
Okay. So now we have this portion of parcels here, which are similarly to the previous ones. They're currently high density residential, and they're being proposed to change to low density residential.
Again, for development, realistic development possibilities.
Yes.
Next.
And I think that might be it for Clear Lake Oaks area. So now I will head on down. I think the next set are in Lucerne. And yes, I believe this was a potential change area that was surveyed. And it is currently medium density residential, and there was a proposal to change it to local commercial.
I don't remember that.
I don't either.
I think that that may be part of the housing element thing. The only thing we talked about were the parcels next to Ciago and the one up off of, I think, Panorama Drive.
I don't think that's hate, but let me, Holly, let's go back and look at that offline and see.
Mhm.
That may not,
Sure.
yeah, that might be an error. Okay, keep going, Allison.
Okay, let's see, that might have covered all of them.
Ah, yeah, there is
Looks
one
like
by
there
the
was
plaza
one
over
in
to
Clear
13th
Lake
Avenue
Oaks.
in Lucerne.
Yeah.
So that is going to be a reduction of the commercial zoning because the plaza was originally an area of special study when we updated the Shoreline Communities Area Plan. And the whole goal was to create a community center gathering place with commercial. That has not come to be. It's still got residences on the outside edges. And so we changed it. That doesn't look right. Am I talking about the right thing?
That's
This
the
is currently.
thing that we
Oh, no,
wanted to
that's
have the
that's a
resiliency
different one.
center.
This one, yeah, go ahead, Holly. Talk about this one. This is good.
Okay, so basically we have the church has 3 buildings down there and they're empty at the moment, plus the community garden. And so we have earmarked that as being a potential warming, cooling, resiliency community center down the road. So that's why it's put as public facilities.
Yeah, they're looking at this location as we develop the the community resiliency centers too. So this mirrors that. Good. Next one, Allison, can you go to Lucerne?
Yes. Back to Lucerne here.
I know I didn't make this up. We wanted to change this. Okay, good.
No.
Yeah, right where that red stuff is with the knobby thing on the end, that's the hotel or the castle.
This area?
Yep, exactly. Okay. So you see how either side of the red has 2 layers with that little alleyway in between? It's like 2 layers of red, then 13th Street, and then 2 layers of red. Okay, that was originally changed so that it would all be like this 2 streets of commercial on either side. The LAPAC approved a recommendation to remove the outer line of red on either side. Right, Allison? It should be going to yellow.
Okay, so the proposal is for this section here.
So
And
let me
for
tell
the-
you what's going to get added.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Looks
apparently
like
we
this-
missed that one. The outer lines of red, the commercial, have never been changed to commercial. There's no interest. They're all residentially developed, and the community decided let's just take it back to what is existing rather than keep hoping for changes. Because, and I'll tell you why, because a legal nonconforming parcel, such as those residential uses, those are legal nonconforming uses. They can't expand. They can't build a garage. It's problematic for them to continue with their residential use because it's limited, because the community has said we want commercial there. And so this would revert those outer layers, still maintaining that commercial corridor along 13th Street. But the neighborhoods on either side would then just go back to residential use. And I think we made a change. I can't remember if we made a change alongside. Remember that pink one? Oh, was there? Okay. Oh, yeah. We don't remember what those are. And
Question,
Holly and I will
Maria.
talk about that.
Has mixed use come up as a possibility for any of these that are obviously residential now but are zoned commercial?
Yes, mixed use has been a resonating theme throughout all of our discussions, particularly to commercial, because the existing commercial would now have a much better opportunity for residential to be located in there.
And I'm looking at the highway parcels too. There's
Yes,
plenty of-
yeah. And I really think that that's going to be a huge benefit when we do get our new RENA numbers, and we have to look for places where we can accommodate future housing development, adding a little apartment or something like that so that it won't take away from the rural character and the small business character of our neighborhoods, but would allow for housing development. It's going to be so helpful. Yeah. I want to live over a pizza place myself, but yeah. All right, I think we're done. We ran a little over. Does the GPAC have any questions? Oh, sorry, giving it back to Denise as chair.
Oh, I just had, this some edumacation for me. You know, you have local commercial and then everybody commercial, I guess, right? Or
Yeah. So local
I mean,
commercial.
I assume local commercial means, you know, I build a coffee shop and I open it and I live there and I do business. And then the other category would accommodate something like a Starbucks.
Yeah. Yeah, a restaurant. It could recognize a Dollar General. However, it goes in different tiers. Some things are just allowed by right. So you can go in, you can put in your restaurant there, or you can put in your cafe. You can have your surveyor's office or your engineer's office. That's local commercial. Then you get, and that's mainly it was designed to support the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah.
Then you get into community commercial. That's where you're going to see your main streets. And that supports the larger community.
Okay.
So then we also have things like highway commercial, resort commercial that sort of cater to the folks that are driving through or the folks that come to stay.
I understand.
Mireya, where can both GPAC members and the community find those definitions?
Yeah. And my other question was, when you're talking about changing residential from high density to lower density, are you talking about parcels where right now there's no density? I mean, there's nothing there now, and what you want to do is make it.
They have not been currently developed with multifamily residential, yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at stuff that could have been problematic to developers because it means that they'd have to cobble together and merge a number of those small projects and still meet setbacks and, you know.
Okay.
All right, so you had,
Bob, 1 moment. I gave it to Denise for public input.
right, so any other questions? Public input, please.
Real quick, you mentioned the panoramic, but it didn't show up on the shoreline.
Thank you. Allison, okay, so there is one more. There was a parcel that was in the process of getting developed and subdivided. There are graded pads for the housing, and it didn't get changed. The rezone, it didn't get changed during, or I think it was going to be changed and got reverted to rural residential or something like that. It was R1. Then in an area plan update went to rural residential, even though it was in the process of getting developed. The LAPAC heard Bob's request to take it back to R1 with the thought of not having the original density of housing that had been developed, but to just finish what has already been started, which would then result in like a parcel map. So the parcels would still be large, but it would revert back to something that would allow for that housing.
Where is
It's
this?
in Panoramic Drive in Lucerne. And I don't have, you know what, let's add that one to what we are going to talk to you about in the beginning of the next meeting so that Allison has time to get that up there. Thank you, Bob, for pointing that out. We will make sure that that is included because that was approved by the LAPAC.
So just real quick on that, there's actually, for some reason, it didn't get approved as a subdivision 30 years ago. There's 10 pads, there's actually water meters in the ground, there's electricity, there's a road. So the goal would be just to have like a minor subdivision there, like four lots on 10 houses instead of the original plan 10.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, we'll bring it back. Where are we? Yes.
Margo has a question.
Comment from.
Question for our agenda. We're going to wrap up what we didn't cover today. But we also had a request from a GPAC member to cover a new topic, and that is the addition of a, oh gosh.
I got it.
OG.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Betsy Kahn's request for modifications for the addition of senior support related services into the appropriate locations in the general plan. We didn't add that to our agenda because we wanted to stick to mapping. So what we did is just take that in, and that's going to be reflected in the draft documents, and we'll hash it out then. So it's not a LAPAC issue, it's a policy issue, and that's not what, that hasn't come before you guys yet. So we will bring that back at a later time.
Okay, all right.
So next steps, we're going to meet again in a week. We're going to talk about, or we're going to get you a hate presentation, if I have to do it myself. And then we will have some availability for discussion about what we just presented for you today, but we're not going to go hash it out item by item. Then we're going to talk about community growth boundary changes and planning area boundary changes.
Okay.
You guys have been good sports.
So
Thank you.
meeting,
Motion to adjourn.
it's not adjourned because we have a second part to this meeting, but
Yeah.
yes.
Till next time.
Till next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
That's